A boy with a cruel smile and laughing girls behind his back said that they were expelling a young man named Ariak from the heroes group because he was of no use to them. Ariak looked up at them indifferently and asked if they were really going to expel him. He sat calmly and relaxed on the grass in front of them and asked if they could cope without him. This young man's name is Ariak Mihama, and he is 18 years old. He is an adventurer of the Granheim Kingdom. More precisely, he was an adventurer. Ariak stood up from the ground and scratched his head, telling them that if they wanted to continue traveling without him, he agreed. The angry guy in front of him reminded him in a raised voice that he was not doing them a favor. He then began to shout that he had been expelled from the party of a hero named Vivia from the kingdom of Granheim, after which he asked if the hero realized what this meant. Ariak knew that Vivia Kalnoa said that she was one step away from killing the demon lord, and also had a holy sword class. Everyone called him a hero. The girl behind Vivia confirmed that he was telling the truth, as did the man next to him. She told him that he was from the same village as them, so they took him to carry their luggage out of friendship. This woman named Teria is a fighter. She has amazing abilities and she is able to fight without any protection at all, using her unique skills that strengthen her body. And the man's name is Elgar. He is the kingdom's shield, which has unimaginable power, and his giant defense skill makes his body impenetrable like steel. He confirmed Teria's words. Another mage girl in the group is named Polara. She is said to be humanity's trump card, and has the power of 10,000 demon lords hidden within her. Her skill is Archmage. She suggested that Ariaku accept that he is trash. Vivia also turned to Ariak with a grin and pointed to the words of his companions, asking him if there was anything else to say. Ariak in turn answered that he did. He said that he had to go, so he said goodbye. Vivia was angry that the hero did not care, so he asked why he did not care at all, ordering him to listen. A girl came up to Ariak from behind and asked if he was leaving already. The hero turned around and looked at her while Vivia continued to get angry. The speaker was a girl with a staff. She also said that she had known for a long time that this would happen because the Lord had told her this news. Ariak addressed her by the name Alicia. She was a great saint, her healing skills were simply amazing. Thanks to them and her divine beauty, she became famous not only in the kingdom, but throughout the world. Vivia was pleased with Alicia's words, so with an even bigger grin he told Ariaku that even she thought the same about him. But Ariak knew that in reality, Alicia also wanted to get away from the group of this not very smart person. He looked at the girl, thinking about it, and she looked at him hopefully. They were the only ones who hated this whole company. And then she looked away lifelessly, her mood worse. Ariak realized that he had no ideas for her, but they had known each other for a long time, so maybe he could take her with him. For as long as Ariak could remember, Alicia had always followed him everywhere. In his memories, he remembered reading a book, and she was watching him from behind a tree. She was very shy, so she was afraid to even say a word. However, now the girl has changed. All the heroes were from the same village called Litanda, so they knew each other since childhood, and that is why they traveled in a group. However, Ariak does not know why they treat him this way, although he himself did not know why he was with them. The guy sat down tiredly and said that they had already expelled him, so he asked why Vivia was pestering him, asking to be allowed to leave already. Vivia continued to laugh, asking if he was not interested in the reason. And without waiting for an answer, he said that Ariak doesn't even have a unique skill. He can't use either offensive or defensive magic. All he can do is support magic and poison removal. Teria explained that without the necessary skills, he would only be a nuisance, and Elgar added that in a fight with the Demon Lord's army, he would be the first to die. Polara also said that he was also giving false information, recalling that last time he talked about some kind of trap that did not exist. Ariak looked away, thinking that his lack of skills was no reason to exclude him. And then he said that he understood their reasons, but expressed a desire to say a few words before leaving, starting with his skills. But Alicia came up to him and interrupted him, asking him to just leave. He looked at her. The girl said gloomily that there was no need to destroy this group with your speeches. She was very serious. The guy was confused, nodded, and said that he understood Alicia. Vivla laughed and said that even she didn't want to see him. Then he came close, grabbed him by the collar, and told him to get lost quickly. Vivia looked into Ariak's eyes and told him how pathetic he was. Ariak looked back and said he understood. He then placed his hand on Vivia's shoulder and spoke to him one last time, surprising the man. Ariak said that Vivia always uses poor quality healing water and takes the normal one for herself, and he keeps it in blue bottles, after which he said that that was all for him. The girls looked at the man strangely, repeating the words about the healing water. The guy became very worried and asked if they really believed him. Then he turned and asked Ariak to repeat, warning that he would answer for his words. However, before he could finish speaking, Ariak had already left, and Vivia was surprised at where he had disappeared to, after which he shouted that he cursed him. On this note, Ariak left the group. He thought about how their saint had visions of him leaving the group, which meant she had decided to choose her childhood friends to protect them no matter what. But the guy didn't care about any of them. He moved through the forest, through the trees and bushes with his sword on his belt, listening to the birds singing and the rustling of leaves. Leaves fell on his head, and he began to rest a little, pushing another branch away from his face. The young man noticed that there was no end in sight to this forest and wondered how much longer he had to go. He decided to head to a town called Otte. Ariak had been there once and remembered it as a nice little town. The people there were also quite friendly. He thought that it would be nice to settle down there since nothing else tied him down. The hero looked at the huge trees along the way and stopped to drink from a stream running nearby. He took out a compass and compared it with the position of the sun in the sky, remembering that it would take about a month to get to the town. However, there were also advantages, because traveling alone, he knew exactly what he needed from things and did not need to drag a mountain of junk. Then he thought about how Vivia and the others were doing at this time, looking away. After all, he was usually the only one who took care of all their inventory, so they are probably suffering now, and on top of that, they don't know how to use cards. As he moved further into the forest, he decided that he had enough of them and sent them to deal with the problems themselves. Then he noticed the bright sun between the trees, not covered by the crowns of other trees. He was surprised that he had already left the forest. Ariak walked between them and came out on the cliff of a huge mountain, shielding his eyes from the sun's rays. He felt the wind with his hands and thought about his freedom. The young man said with a smile that traveling the world alone is much better. Ariak remembers that persistent request. The request he received from God in his dreams. He was still a small child then and heard his name being called. He turned around and saw an old man with a long beard who was talking about how he would need to help his childhood friends until the right time came. However, the boy then wondered who it was. The old man said that he was a god and therefore ordered not to dare to talk to him like that. He repeated again that Ariak's goal was to help Vivia until his time came. The boy said that he did not want to and asked to leave. God was surprised by such words and added that if he did not help them, these poor souls would die before reaching adulthood. The boy was surprised by such words, deciding that God was simply taking advantage of his kindness. Returning to the present, Ariak said that if he had already completed this task, then great, because they were really annoying him. In front of his outstretched hand, writing appeared. The skill he received from God is called backup. Strengthening weapons and armor, speeding up and slowing down time, strengthening recovery, all these skills are very necessary in the dungeon. His unique skill allows you to use all these skills. He never fought from the front, so you could say he was always in the shadows. Usually, if they want to see the status, they use the unique skill evaluation. But for some reason this skill doesn't work properly on the hero, so he always had to list all his skills. To everyone, it looked like he just had a bunch of useless skills. Ariak thought that in order to not show his true strength to anyone, he used the concealment skill to hide his skills that had reached a certain level. He can do everything, but no one knows it, because they don't need to know that he has such a skill. However, Ariak said that he never thought that they would just take him and kick him out, but on the other hand, he couldn't show his true strength to Vivia and the others, and then he threw these thoughts away because he was no longer with them. He's not in their group anymore. They hate him now, but he thinks he's done a good job of looking after his comrades. And then he realizes and winces, crying out the question of whether he was just being overprotective. After all, when they kicked him out, they scolded him in the same way as children scold their parents during their adolescence. Then he pushed those thoughts aside, telling himself that he needed to let them go. They were on their own now, and he should be glad he was free of that damn request. The guy smiled relaxedly, saying that they were already able to take care of themselves, after which, sitting on the ground, he heard loud screams. Someone was screaming for help. He wondered what it was, putting his hand on his head. The screams continued calling for someone to help. Ariak couldn't believe that someone could get through it. He asked if it was a person, and the voice said that it would answer if he helped. The voice explained that he was under a curse that could not be removed, so he asked to kill him. Ariak asked about such a sudden request. First he asks for help, and now he asks to kill him. The guy got up from the ground and said that he did not want to, so he needed to go look for someone else. The voice continued to ask for help before it lost the pride of its dragon kind. Ariak shuddered at these words. However, he answered, saying that he was asking for forgiveness for what he could not do, so he was saying goodbye. After which, he stopped and asked again about the dragons. Ariak said that he did not believe it even more because dragons were too proud a species to ask for help. The voice continued to beg, and the boy thought about how pitiful this voice was. He took his tied bag and apologized for asking too much. He explained that he couldn't just take the life of someone he barely knew. After which, he picked up his things in the bag and thought, and then said that if he had said the word help instead of please, then everything would have been different. The voice repeated the word please again, and then said help. Ariak was very surprised by this, after which the guy smiled and said that in that case he agreed, and noted that it was worth asking in the first place. Then he said he thought he needed to make it so the voice wouldn't have to use the rest of its mana to contact him. He said he didn't think the voice was lying, and then he thought about where the voice was coming from. Then he shouted that he had found it, and jumped down from the edge of the cliff he was sitting on. Landing through the leaves of the trees, Ariak's cloak caught on the branches as he fell, but he landed on the ground. Even though he has strengthened his body, his clothes still get stuck in some places, even the leaves in his mouth get stuck at this speed of movement. He began to move forward, saying that he had never been so active, and that he had even torn his clothes. At that moment, a giant insect, similar to a caterpillar, appeared behind him with a deafening cry. However, Ariak didn't show it, only slightly looking at his forehead and shoulder, and used a spell, creating a magic circle behind his back. He thought that since he had a skill for repelling insects, it would be better for him to use it. Having dealt with the monster, the boy continued to think about the dragon, wondering if he should be trusted. When dragons lose to a man, they submit to him, recognizing his strength. This is why the hero finds it difficult to believe that dragons can even ask for help, because otherwise they would have to accept that humans are stronger than them. This means that, besides the dragon, there is someone there who may have plans for Ariak. After a little while, he reached the door in the rock and examined it, drawing conclusions. The guy found a barrier that was probably weakened by the earthquake. He wondered if that voice really came from that place. He also looked around and noticed a large number of corpses, in addition to the crevice from the earthquake. Ariak assumed that these were all thieves who wanted to break in to find valuables, but were unable to. He also wondered if he could force his way through, but he rejected the idea because it would break everything. The guy exhaled heavily and said that he was already fed up with all this, but decided to first clean everything here and only then go. However, a man appeared behind the hero and said that the guy did not need to hurry. The man extended his hand to the side with the ball, and the corpses began to rise, turning into zombies. Ariak noted the power of controlling the undead and asked if he had a necromancy stone. The man laughed and said yes, saying that he had been using it ever since he found it and that he was very lucky because he no longer had to steal. He can just make zombies attack other people. Ariak looked at the man seriously and asked about what it was like to use such dirty tricks. The man with the scar on his forehead was angry, the veins on his face bulging, and he angrily told him to repeat it. Then he shouted at Ariak to get ready to join him as a corpse, calling him a puppy. The man laughed, repeating how lucky he was because he could control all the zombies. But the hero was unlucky because this whole crowd would turn him into a dead body. The hero was silent. And then he raised his hand indifferently, and a large magic circle appeared above him. He asked the man if he had finished speaking, and if so, he should disappear. Ariak pointed his finger at him. Immediately after that, the magic circle moved forward. It was the skill, Restoration. All the zombies under the circle began to disappear. The man couldn't believe his eyes and called out to his zombies, calling it impossible and wondering how it happened. Then he raised his voice and asked who Ariak was. The guy asked again, calmly remaining in his place. And then he replied with a smile that he was just the one who was expelled from the hero's group, because all he was good for was carrying luggage. The man fell to the ground and said that it couldn't be that a simple porter had such strong attack magic. Ariak explained that it was not an attack magic, but a normal restoration. It restores things to their original form, zombies to corpses and corpses to dust. The man screamed in alarm that he had never heard of such a thing, while still lying on the ground. At that moment, a hand reached out and grabbed his arm. It was the zombie that had been under his control until then. The zombie pulled the man down and he screamed. Ariak told him to be careful because those who had not yet turned to dust would try to find a new body for themselves so they could attack the owner. The man started shouting at the zombies to stop and not come closer. Ariak closed his eyes and said that there was only one fate for him now, namely to be eaten. The guy noted that this was an excellent fate for someone who used the necromancy stone. Then he looked down at the man darkly and said that he had played with the corpses as he wanted, turning them into zombies. Then he asked him if he himself had not expected such a fate. The man could not say a word. The zombies continued to approach him, and the man screamed. Ariak turned around and apologized for not caring and said goodbye. Then Ariak began to think about how to get through the barrier, after which he began to study the stones nearby and look around. After which he thought that perhaps there was some kind of dungeon behind these stones. He sat down and said that he would find out now. After which he closed the hole and used the skill, Metamorphosis. A glow began to emanate from under his feet and the cloak of his clothes rose. This skill allows him to change his body at will. He began to shrink until he was a small mole, looking at himself thoughtfully. Then he looked at his hands and said that now he was a mole, and if that was the case, then he could try to dig himself a passage. He began to dig the ground underneath him, and made a tunnel around the door from below in an arc, digging himself out on the other side. Ariak looked around when he came out on the other side, and said that everything was fine and he had succeeded. After which he turned back into a human and said that it was normal for barriers not to affect the ground because no one would dig a huge hole under such a huge gate. No one thought that someone could become a mole and crawl in there. The creator of the barrier was too careless, because this is a serious hole in the barrier's defense. He then used a spell to create a ball of light above his hand and moved on. He passed the huge columns that supported the ceiling and noticed that it was quite spacious inside. He wondered if the barrier affected the inside of these dungeons. Besides, the dungeon didn't look like something a mid-level adventurer would find. In this world, adventurers have ranks. Every adventurer starts with E and goes up to S. The rank is determined by the stats and monsters they defeat. B rank or lower. A-rank adventurers are said to be able to compete with the Demon Lord himself. Only a small portion of people are S-rank. These include the hero Vivia and Alicia. As for Ariak, he is a C rank, the most average rank possible. But it's a lie. Well, it's true, but it's also a lie. He thinks the system is full of holes. They focus too much on attack power and defeating monsters, and don't appreciate other important skills and abilities that are also useful in combat. Not that Ariak minded his rank, but it wouldn't hurt to make a few changes to the system. At that moment, something caught his attention. They were stone gargoyle statues on tall pillars. The hero looked at them. And then, he used a spell, after which he drew conclusions and moved on. But the gargoyles came to life, saying that they had encountered an intruder. Their eyes lit up as Ariak passed between them. Then they stood up and said that this was a red man and that the danger had to be destroyed. The hero asked why they called him red, because if the guards were blocking his path, then it meant that there really was something valuable or someone important there. The gargoyles called the hero a stupid man, and then jumped on him with the desire to destroy him. Ariak noted that they were fast and their level was around 60. They were strong enough to destroy a small country. However, before they could strike, they approached as if they had crashed into a transparent wall. Ariak said that he activated the skill of atmosphere manipulation and made the air turn into a wall. The gargoyles made a crack and said that they should not be considered so weak. And the next second, they broke the wall with the words that Ariak is a pathetic person. The hero jumped back, letting out a surprised cry. The guy did not expect the gargoyle to break through such compressed air, noticing the strength. The gargoyle swung its hand at him. The gargoyles attacked the hero furiously, but he only defended himself and parried their blows with his hands. He waited for the moment when he could counterattack, and the gargoyles continued to strike. One of them came around from behind and shouted that they had caught him and that he had fought well for a human. But the gargoyle's vision blurred and she was shocked that Ariak had disappeared. The boy standing behind her laughed and said that he couldn't believe that they had fallen into such a simple trap. The gargoyle started to turn around and wanted to ask when he managed to do it, but its head flew off its shoulders earlier from the hero's handwave. Another gargoyle rushed at the hero, asking who he was and how he defeated the guard so easily. The hero noticed that they said they couldn't be defeated and asked what happened then and now. He told them to stop looking down on people, thinking they were stronger than them. Then Ariak asked if the guard could open the door for him. The gargoyle said no. The boy called her a useless puppet. The gargoyle raised her arms and screamed at him not to call her that. But as he approached, the hero extended his hand and met the fist with his palm, emitting a bright light. Ariak explained that during the first attack, he used a skill that shielded them, and they did not even notice. He then activated the skill to attack the gargoyle's partner. Using the damage reflection skill, he could transfer all the enemy's damage to him. He explained that this was why he didn't even do anything special to win. So all he wants to tell them is that they are in too much of a hurry, and so he said goodbye to them. After he snapped his fingers, smoke rose from the battlefield, and he silently watched the result of his spell. Then he asked what was next and walked past the columns on which the gargoyles were sitting. He came to the door with the seal and, looking at it, shouted for the door to be opened for him. The door did indeed open with a corresponding sound, and Ariak walked inside. There was a corridor in front of him. The boy realized that this was indeed a dungeon, and more spacious than he thought. Dungeons are like living beings, because they have their own will and mind. They send monsters as soon as uninvited guests appear. They are trying to take over the body and magic of the stranger, and all in order to become stronger too. The dungeon uses treasure chests as bait. Ariak just encountered one of these on his way. Usually, these are always just traps, and the monsters are just secretly watching for when the person opens the chest. A large slug appeared behind Ariak, but it instantly shattered into small pieces, and Ariak continued to study the contents of the chest. He turned around and asked if this was really his first reward after coming all this way. He had some leaves in his hands. Then he reached the end of the corridor with open doors, and in front of him was a huge room. He was talking about how spacious it was. He heard loud noises and looked away, saying that he understood now. There was so much space in this room that the monster called the Great Golem could walk around. And A rank could handle it. The Great Golem slammed his hand into the ground, leaving a large crater in its place. The hero, in turn, managed to jump back. He was surprised by how fast the monster was, and also thought that it would be unwise to attack the monster from the front. And then he opened his eyes wider in surprise, hearing the same loud sound. After landing, he looked back. There were 3 great golems around Ariak, looking at the hero. The boy shouted that 3 great golems were too many. In a situation like this, you definitely need an S-rank adventurer. One of the golems hit the guy with both hands at once, and he bounced back again. He was above the monster's back, and with the same indifferent face he said that, unfortunately, adventurer ranks were mostly meaningless to him. But suddenly, a voice rang out, telling Ariaku to listen. The hero Vivia told Ariaku to listen with a grin. He told him that CI rank adventurers were worthless. He and Alicia were S rank, so he shouldn't compare them to himself. The boy looked at the stone indifferently and asked what he cared about their ranks. Vivia was displeased that he dared to speak like that. Tyria also added that even she, an A rank, was on a completely different level. The guy said that he understood perfectly well that they were C rank and asked what they wanted next. Vivia asked if he really didn't understand the difference between all of them. Pulara laughed next to him at how funny he was. He was told that if he was attacked by monsters that even he, an S-rank adventurer, had trouble dealing with, then he would come to his senses. Tyria suggested, for example, a great golem. They believed that Ariak would wet his waist with just one earth-shaking step. They talked about what a useless loser he was. These memories came back to him during the battle. Ariak landed on the great golem and touched it with his palm, saying that this is the first. Then, Ariak jumped on the second one and, also touching, said that this was the second one. He said that their steps create good vibrations and it is simply impossible to stand. Vivia was right about that. The guy imagined that Vivia would wish him dead at that moment. He then landed on the last great golem and placed the final magic seal. The hero wondered if 3 marks would be enough and then said that for him, they were just a trifle. So I activated the marks, shouting for them to burn. The golems scattered into small stones. He landed on the ground as rocks continued to fall from the explosions and said that the rank system was full of flaws. However, for a C-rank adventurer to defeat a great golem was too much. At that moment he was hit on the head. It was the key that he picked up and then he saw a door in front of him. The gates invited him, calling him the Red Man who seeks death. They were decorated with statues and skulls. Ariak walked over and inserted the key into the lock, after which they opened in front of his indifferent face. He took a step and looked around. In front of him stood a man who greeted him and congratulated him on completing the dungeon. The man in glasses said that no one had come here for over 1,000 years. He was incredibly happy and asked how strong he was. Ariak asked who he was, namely, what kind of old man he was. The man in glasses was shocked that he was called an old man. He replied that he was a high priest. He told them that he had been asked for help, so he suggested continuing later. The man asked about what he allowed himself. Then he asked again about the fact that he was asked for help and, thinking, suggested that the little girl was able to reach out to someone from the outside. He was surprised at how the barrier weakened over the years. And then he laughed, calling it all a trifle, because compared to the dungeon, what he had prepared was all really a trifle, and since Ariak came here for her, he would have to fight strong monsters. After which to fight him, because he is not only physically strong, but also good in magic. Ariak at this time indifferently cleaned his ears. The man was extremely unhappy that he was not listening. The hero apologized and politely asked him to repeat it. The man called the hero stupid. He didn't understand why, after just destroying several great golems, he acted as if he didn't care. Ariak said that the man was already starting to bore him and he didn't have much time, and he didn't want to waste it on the old man. The man was angry. The hero said that he understood that the great priest simply had to be killed. The man did not understand why he was so confident in himself, because he was much stronger than the golems, and, even if he tried, he would not be able to hurt him. Ariak asked him who told him that he had killed the golems. Then he extended his hand forward and used a magical enhancement. He said that golems are artificial creations, and therefore, their entire body is supported by a magical system similar to their nervous system, and naturally, the larger they are, the more difficult it is to maintain their state. The priest was surprised that he understood the basics of magic no worse than he did. Ariak asked to tell him what would happen when a lot of mana affects their system. And, without waiting for an answer, he said that their balance would be disrupted and they would not be able to maintain their shape, which would lead to them exploding. The man screamed for him to stop because it was only possible in theory. Golems are not affected by magic, which means they cannot be destroyed like that. Ariak said that he had already destroyed them, and then added that he understood that in order to create one such golem, you need the mana of an entire country of wizards, and he had created 3 of them. After which Ariak waved his hand and said that, as he saw, since he was here, they were no longer there. The man was shocked by these words and laughed nervously with a twisted face. He, dejected, began to think out loud about what it meant that he now had something to talk about with him. Ariak was definitely strong, therefore he would give him his life in order to make him a god. The hero asked if he really wanted to become a god. The man shouted that this was certainly his goal. He explained that by becoming a god, he would finally be able to subjugate this world, and it would be easy. Ariak walked indifferently to his throne and climbed in, asking where the voice that called him was, assuming it was there. The man told him to stop ignoring it. Then he took the staff and put his hand on the magic ball on it, saying that he would show Ariaku. After all, there was no point in hiding anything anymore. In order to become a god, you just need an incredible amount of mana. And he asked where to get it if he couldn't find a good magical source. That's why he had to take a desperate step. Ariak was amazed by what he saw. Above the throne was a crystal, inside of which was the body of a girl with horns. He wondered what this meant, and the man told him to meet the daughter of the dragon Geshpent. Ariak was amazed that the daughter of the dragon Geshpent was this girl in the crystal. The man laughed, noting that he wasn't even the least bit surprised. He called himself a genius high priest who uses a dragon to become a god, so he can't be defeated. Ariak looked down at the man with disdain and called him trash, not a genius. He explained his words by saying that he had been holding a little girl captive for years, and asked if he knew how painful it was to torture her like that. He asked how he dared to call himself a high priest after that. And in the end, he said that the man was simply nothing more than a simple criminal and not a genius. The priest asked why he called him a criminal, simply because he had only sacrificed one dragon. Ariak replied that it did not matter whether it was a dragon or a cat, you cannot deprive someone of their will at will. And he called these words a fact, and then said that he was interested in what was going on in the heads of such madmen who imagined themselves to be gods. The angry high priest said that Ariaku would never understand him, and then began to use a spell. He added that since he dared to insult him, the guy could only prepare for death. The man sent the spell flying towards the hero with a cry that sentenced Ariak to death. But the guy indifferently stretched out his hand and a magic seal appeared in front of his palm. There was a blinding and loud explosion. The high priest covered himself with his hand, and Ariak was nowhere to be seen. So the man laughed, saying that no matter how hard he tried, the guy's protective spell was much weaker than his magic. However, something flashed past the man's face and he grabbed his cheek. Ariak remained unharmed and said that he was curious about what it would be like to wield the power of a dragon. The boy was playing with a crystal fragment in his hand and, tilting his head, asked the man to tell him. The priest was amazed at what it was and how he was able to hurt it all. There was blood on his face. Then he raised his staff, and behind him was a crystal with the dragon's daughter. He asked about the fact that he came to help her, but if he takes another step, she will die. The man was sure that he didn't want this, and said not to worry because he wouldn't kill her just like that, and also that he had pretty much ruined the mood. Then he added that he would start with the limbs, and laughed. Ariak said that he understood the man and looked away. He raised his hands and said he wouldn't take another step. He asked the man if he really thought he would just believe it now. Ariak assured him he was telling the truth. And then he snapped his finger and said that he would even block all his magic skills for a while. Chains of symbols appeared around him. He said that he could not allow the one who asked him for help to die, and if the priest was so deeply affected by his actions, then he would do nothing more. The man said that it was good, laughing, and then shouted that he was going to die anyway. His face was full of madness. But suddenly there was a cry, and the crystal with the dragon's daughter fell to the ground. It was the cry of the priest, who grabbed his shoulder where the wound was. Ariak said that the crystal was stronger than he thought. The man asked him how he did it when he didn't feel any magic from him. Ariak replied that he had blocked the skills related to magic, which is why he didn't feel anything oval, because it wasn't magic. The priest with the severe wounds asked if he really took him for a fool, since ordinary strength could not even scratch the crystal. Ariak came up and kicked him indifferently, saying that he did not care what he said. The hero assured that he only needed the daughter of the dragon Geshpent, imprisoned in a crystal. The man laughed at how stupid Ariak was, because his actions now would lead to nothing. At this time, the guy was knocking his hand on one place on the crystal and, after a little while, it split into small pieces, greatly surprising the priest. The man began to shout that it was impossible, and Ariak asked him to be silent, noting that he had spent all his strength on holding her, so it was not surprising that he had become so weak. The boy put the girl on the floor, taking her out of the crystal. The priest asked him what he was doing. He screamed that he still needed her, so he shouldn't touch her. He still needed to become a god. The girl was lying in the boy's arms and began to open her eyes, but he took the cloth and tied the priest's mouth, saying that he was very annoying. Then he turned around, saying that it was better this way, and asked how the dragon's daughter was feeling. He adjusted her hair and asked if she could stand up. The girl opened her eyes, exhausted. She started talking and rolled over, and Ariak said that she seemed to be okay. And then, with difficulty and heavy breathing, she told him that she heard the boy's voice when she called for help, and added that she did not expect that he would actually come. Then she rose and thanked the hero. Ariak approached her face, greatly embarrassing her, and asked to let her see what her skills were. Then he cast a spell while looking at the dragon's confused daughter, and his expectations were confirmed. However, he wondered why this happened, and at that moment the girl pushed him away, saying that it was enough, and thanked him for his help. She apologized for not being able to give him anything other than words of gratitude, calling herself because of this talentless dragon. Ariak said that he had not asked for anything in return. Then the girl noticed the high priest's body on the ground and shouted words of insult at him. Pointing her finger, she began to accuse him of locking her away for 1,000 years and taking her powers for himself. That's why she'll never forgive him. The girl struggled to get up, and Ariak said that he was tied up so she should calm down. The girl said that it was very unfortunate because she not only failed like a dragon but also lost her strength. Ariak asked what was wrong with her and why she called herself a loser just because she lost her strength, suggesting that she calm down. The girl remained silent for a moment and turned to him, saying that she was truly sorry. She added that she had asked him for help, thus adding to his troubles. Ariak was surprised and asked if it was necessary to be strong to be a dragon. The girl explained that they have 4 characteristics. Namely, long life, regeneration, enormous destructive power and control of the sky. If you possess all of them, you can be called a dragon. And having taken them all from her, this man tried to become a god. Ariak was surprised that his words were true. The girl said that she did not know whether a human could truly become a god, but the power of the royal dragon bloodline was closest to him. Ariak asked again about the royal lineage, and the girl exhaled, hesitating. And then she raised her hand to her chest and said that she was the heir of the dragons, the youngest daughter of the Dragon King. However, since her 4 characteristics were weak, she failed as a dragon. She couldn't even control her power properly, so she changed to human form because it was easier. and having lost all her power, she was stripped of her title and banished. The girl looked at the priest. And she said that after this man caught her and held her captive in this place, sucking the rest of her strength out of her. Ariak noted that it was a great story about how she had spent the last 1,000 years. The girl said that her powers were already weak, and now they were even worse, so she could no longer live like that. The girl took Ariak by the clothes and said that since he had come to help, he must fulfill her request, namely, kill her. She screamed that she couldn't live like this any longer, and that it would be better to die than to live like this, being a weak dragon. The guy raised his hand to her face and the girl's eyes opened. He flicked her face with an indifferent look. The girl screamed and grabbed her forehead, asking why he hit her. Ariak asked in response if she had come to her senses, and she answered that she had been in her right mind from the start. The hero asked her why she had called him, and added that he had not come to kill her. He asked if she remembered what she had said then. The girl looked into Ariaku's eyes and, crying, hesitantly replied that she had told him to help her. The guy put his hand on her head and said that it was true. The girl looked at him with tears in her eyes. And then she turned away, embarrassed, and said that if that was the case then he should help her, but she didn't know how to get her powers back. But if he did, she asked him in advance not to laugh at how weak she was. The guy thought about it, agreed, and said he would try something. The girl asked what it meant. She didn't believe that he could really give her back her strength. The guy stretched out his hands and cast a spell, saying that there was actually a reason for her weakness. A seal appeared under the girl's feet. He said that there had been a curse all this time. This guy is a real sage. The guy creates a magic circle in the center of the pedestal. The girl stands on it, puzzled, and asks the guy again about her curse. He confirms her words and says that according to the results of the analysis of perception of abnormality and concealment of cancellation, she had a rather rare curse on her. The girl doesn't understand and asks the guy again, thinking about this curse. The guy notes that the girl already knows everything. Ariak says that because of this curse, the 4 powers, namely longevity, regeneration, destructive power, and dominance of the sky, were seriously damaged. Not only that, they were stolen by man. If they break the curse, her powers will return. He says he'll just do a little rollback. The girl is a little skeptical of his actions. The guy uses the curse removal skill, combining it with recovery, and will return her powers. He also activates time acceleration to make her recover faster, asking the girl for forgiveness. The girl freezes in place and begins to tremble. She begins to hold her throat and choke, unable to utter a word. The guy stretches out his hand and dark smoke comes out of the girl's chest. The girl's eyes turn black and dark energy comes out of her mouth. She falls to her knees and pushes her chest forward. The dark energy was completely pulled out of her, and she finally took a deep breath, falling right on top of the guy. He catches her and asks if she's alive. She doesn't make a sound, and then breaks away and looks at the guy with happy eyes and an embarrassed face. Her face changes and she starts breathing. Ariak is surprised and says that everything is as expected from a dragon. The girl says that because of the guy she lost consciousness for a short time. They notice a dark substance that was above their heads and think that this substance was a curse. The girl asks the guy what that thing actually was in her. The guy confirms her words and says that it is so intricate that they would not be able to notice with a normal inspection. The guy says that this curse deprives the dragon of the meaning of life. This anti-dragon spell suppresses the dragon's powers. It was because of this thing that the girl was so weakened. Suddenly, this substance rises and then enters a person who is near the company. His face changes to sinister, and a little of this dark energy comes out of his mouth. The girl notes that this curse has turned into a person. The guy confirms her words and says that it has returned to the caster. It seems to him that the cursed person was forbidden to use curses again. The guy says that this curse is created to neutralize the dragon. The girl goes down the steps and looks forward, a little swept away. She looks at the crumbling human skeleton and then says that it is a curse to neutralize the dragon. She looks at it with an ominous expression. Her pupils have narrowed. Suddenly she raises her hands and does not understand what just happened to her. She is embarrassed but happy to realize that her strength is growing. The guy says that the thing that was stealing her powers is gone, so he thinks it was regeneration that cured her so quickly. She gives him a thumbs up. A huge magical ball emerges from her finger and gradually grows. She then shoots it upwards, creating a huge pillar of magical power. The girl tells the guy that she is very grateful to him for giving her back her power. She thanks the guy shyly and with a smile on her face. Ariak says that there is nothing special about it, to which the girl says that the guy is acting strange, after which she again turns to the guy and shyly tries to tell him something. She gets very embarrassed and asks the guy what she looks like. She asks the guy about his favorite type of girl, addressing him as a master. He says he doesn't care. The girl didn't expect this turn of events. The girl cries a little, saying that she thought her body was much better at the previous moment, to which the guy refutes her words. Ariak says he actually thought she was beautiful when he met her. She's still beautiful even after her powers returned. He says he never thought he'd say something like that. He asks the girl for forgiveness for hurting her. He thinks that she is one of the most beautiful girls he has ever met, and her pupils and lips are like precious stones. She also has graceful hands and body. He says that he doesn't think there is a single guy who would pass by without looking back. The girl understands everything and says that's enough. Girl says guy is empty-headed. Guy asks girl again. Anyway, guy always wanted to use judgment on her status. Girl says she doesn't care. The girl says it would be okay if he looked at another part of her. The guy is surprised at what her status is. The girl addresses the guy whether he listens to her or not. Her level is 99, health is 1,029,030, mana is 280, 4,048, attack is 98,940. The guy says it's a lot bigger than he thought. He then turns to the girl and asks her if all dragons are like this, to which she says it's too big. The guy thinks for a bit. He understands and sees that something has emerged in front of him. The girl doesn't understand what's going on here, to which the guy says that some title has appeared. Ariak says that this title means that he is a divine dragon who has received a rider. He understands that this title sounds quite respectable. The girl says that she does not think so. She understood that the master will fly on her. He says that one day, a dragon and its rider became very close and bonded. The rider was known as the Dragon Knight. Dragons who befriend a Dragon Knight have a higher status. The guy points out that these are divine dragons, to which the girl says that gods have many difficulties, and she is nothing more than the daughter of the Dragon King. She does not think that she is a divine dragon. The boy says that the girl wants to say that the boy was the one who would awaken the divine dragon in the girl herself. The girl actually feels a divine aura around the master. The girl asks the guy if he has any guesses about this, to which the guy replies positively. Ariak doesn't understand why he is now a Dragon Knight, to which the girl says that they are doomed partners. The girl says she forgot to introduce herself, even though they are now doomed partners. The guy says she is right. The girl introduces herself as Colette de Broiches. She is the youngest daughter of the ruler of the Geshpen Dragons. The boy introduces himself as Ariak, and he has recently become separated from his party. He is currently traveling alone. The girl says that Ariak will tell everything along the way, to which he asks her to stop. He does not understand why she is going with him, and why she decided that he would agree to this. She says that this is all because Ariak is her doomed Dragon Knight, since he saved her. She begins to cry and says that turning a blind eye to her would be shameless. The guy says she should go back to her city, to which she says she can't because she was kicked out. He says she's right because she got her powers back. She said that the one who cursed her could be from her village. When they were choosing the next Dragon King, Colette was a nuisance. Even if she returned to the village, she would only be a nuisance. The boy apologizes to the girl for asking her about it. She says that everything is fine because thanks to all this, she met the master. So she asks the guy if she can go with him and asks him very much about it. The guy thinks for a while. He finally agrees with her. He says she can stick around until she gets tired of him. She asks the guy again, confused. Ariak asks Colette if he is really her first and only rider. That is why they should stick together. She laughs happily when she hears this. The guy just looks at her. Ariak says that traveling with a cute dragon girl would be too conspicuous. The girl reacts shyly to the master's word cute. The boy reaches out his hand and addresses Colette. He treats her with respect, which she reciprocates and asks him to be together more in the future. She runs up to him and addresses him as a dear rider. The girl then says that she will become the sweetest heroine, since she is gallantly protected, to which Ariak replies that not when she launched a fireball at the ceiling. After some time, Ariak heads to the next city with Colette, a dragon girl, as her guardian. The girl said that he couldn't help but agree. She was interested in what kind of heroic party it was. Colette said that Ariak had supported the leader for many years, and his squad leader was having a hero party. The guy told the girl not to be so annoying. He was sure that they didn't need his help anymore. Ariak said happily that, looking back, he remembers the moment of departure as a pleasant memory. The girl asked if it was really that funny. The guy said that if it changed the future where these guys died for no good reason, then so be it. Colette noted that the guy was too kind. Then Colette stopped and looked gloomy. Ariak looked at her and she asked excitedly if there were any girls at the party. Ariak said that there usually are. The girl was alarmed by these words. The guy added that there were 3 of them. Colette swung at these words. And then she began to talk nervously about how she couldn't lose to them. Ariak thought about how dragons could be so expressive. A short time after Ariak and Vivia had parted, he slammed his glass down on the table, commenting on how refreshing the drink was. Hero Vivia smiled and was very glad that Ariak left them in a deplorable state. Tyria confirmed that it was true, and Polara added that the guy was crazy. Vivia turned and addressed Alicia. The Holy Virgin Alicia looked out the window silently, so Vivia assumed she thought the same. The girl turned, walked away from the window and went to the table, after which she said that a squad without a hero was pointless. Vivia did not understand what she meant. And then they started saying that it was for sure, because as long as Vivia was with them, there would be no problems. After all, he was a hero. Vivia continued drinking from his glass and said that once all the partygoers had left, they would go to Ino's cave, which they had conquered earlier. The girls noted that this happened 3 times. At this time, Ariak and Colette came to the city. The girl was amazed at how prosperous it was, and Ariak said that it was a big city. Then he turned around, noticing Colette picking up a cat on the street. Passers-by were also looking at her. Colette turned to Ariak and said that there was a pleasant smell coming from that direction. So the girl smiled and suggested that he go there, calling the guy her master. The passers-by were amazed that she addressed him in such a way, looking at him strangely. Ariak called out to the girl with a gloomy expression on his face. He said that if she wanted to go, he would go with her, but asked that she be quieter and less noticeable. The girl with glowing eyes said that she understood. The heroes walked to the restaurant building, where Colette ordered a large number of dishes. She picked up the roast pork and said she would take it. Ariak said that, hungry as she was, she should think about it carefully. The girl started biting into the whole pork with glowing eyes and talked about how delicious it was. The guy said it was called dragon's stomach. The waiter approached them, confused, and remarked on the girl's excellent appetite. Colette replied that the food was delicious, and Ariak said that if it was so good, business must be booming. However, the place was empty and they were the only visitors, which confused the guy. The waiter was surprised that they had come to the city without knowing about it. Ariak and Colette looked at the man carefully. He began to explain that recently, a devil's forest had appeared near this city. The kingdom had sent out knights and trade had stopped. He didn't know how long they could stay afloat. So he said they better leave town before they got caught up in all this. Ariak thanked the man. Colette in turn asked what the Devil's Forest was, and Ariak explained that it was a kind of monster nest built by the Demon King, and unlike dungeons, monsters could come out of them. If this happens, the city will be in danger of being destroyed, but it is still inhabited. In the first stage, the threat was probably manageable, and before the worst happens, the heroes will be sent on their way. However, thinking about the upcoming journey, Ariak said that he wanted to know a little more about the situation in the Demon Forest just in case. While continuing to eat, he suggested that we visit the Adventurers Guild. Colette replied that she was looking forward to her visit, and the guy replied that they were not going there to have fun. After a delicious lunch, they walked through the city to the right building and opened the door. In front of them was a large number of different adventurers communicating with each other. However, they immediately turned their attention to Ariak and Colette, falling silent and looking at the heroes. The boy walked past indifferently. Colette followed him and noticed that the atmosphere was not the best. Ariak replied that it was not because of the demon forest. He went up to the counter and called the administrator. The girl, without looking up from reading the document, answered that if he was an adventurer he should give his name. The boy replied that he was Ariak Mihama, a C-rank adventurer. The girl at the counter suddenly stood up and shouted. The people in the Adventurers Guild began to talk about Ariak, asking if the hero had been kicked out. Colette asked why they were making such a fuss. The guild worker politely asked to wait for 1 minute because there was an order from the kingdom. Ariak looked at her calmly. He leaned against the counter, repeating the words about the decree from the kingdom, and Colette was glad that her master was famous. A question began to come from the guild about why now, and the heroes turned around. A man came out to them with a paper and asked the boy if he was the one who called himself Ariak Mihama. Ariak asked about him taking it and added that he would have to prove it. The man replied that he wouldn't have to, because he fit the description on the flyer perfectly. He also said that he didn't expect the guy to shamelessly come to the guild. Ariak began to look at the leaflet with his portrait, and the man, grinning, introduced himself as Ozim, the head of the guild, and he had an imperial decree from Granheim. He then shouted that he was revoking Ariak Mihama's adventurer's guild license. The boy was very surprised by this information. People in the guild began to discuss revoking the license, because to deserve something like that, you would have to commit a terrible crime. Colette was displeased with their words, asking if they thought the master was a fool. Ariak only expected to be simply expelled from the hero's party and demoted to E rank. However, now he can't even get assignments, let alone buy materials. Colette was shocked and asked if they were having problems because of this. The guy chuckled and said he wasn't exactly sure what he expected, but the guild was just a system, so he didn't really care. Ozim haughtily asked if Ariak was serious, and he in turn said that he heard that a devil's forest had appeared nearby, so it must be a general call to attract people. The boy asked if he thought that the kingdom was revoking their license because of these circumstances. Ozim clarified that it meant that he didn't need his support now that he had been expelled from the hero's squad. Ozim said that the royal guard was already heading to the forest to sort out the situation. They don't care about cleaning up after the knights, they're good enough on their own so they don't need them, they're just trying to get them to rescind the order on that basis. Colette asked what would happen if she destroyed them. Ariak replied that he would be the one killed. The boy wondered why they sent the knights of the kingdom and not the hero's party. The city was far from the king's landing, they were only separated, and so the boy thought that Vivia and others who might be nearby would be asked to destroy them. However, something happened and they had to send the knights. Ozim stopped Ariak's thoughts. He said that there was no use for them anyway from a useless person like Ube. After the royal knights killed the boss deep in the forest, the adventurers should do some cleanup there. The people in the Adventurers Guild building confirmed Ozim's words and suggested that Ariaku leave because he was out of place. Colette was very angry with these words, and the guy silently turned around and began to leave, calling the girl to follow him. People smirked at this decision, and the girl did not understand it. However, before they could leave, a knight with blood and broken armor burst into the guild and fell to his knees. Everyone began to look at him with horror as he slid down, holding onto the door and resting. After which he reported that it had not been possible to destroy the Devil's Forest. Everyone was horrified by this. The knight continued to say that hordes of monsters were advancing on the city, and the knights of the kingdom had been destroyed. The adventurers must immediately take up defensive positions. This is an urgent call from the kingdom. And then he clearly said that deserters were to be executed, horrifying all the people. After the report, he threw his head back with all his might and fell to the floor, exhausted. The adventurers inside the guild couldn't believe their eyes, horrified by the knight's report. They shouted that the king's knights had been killed, and that if they escaped, they would be executed. Others said that this was an easy task, in which they did not need to do anything except defend themselves, but they were not sure of this. But the fact remained, the knights could not win. Ariak approached the man lying on the ground and checked his condition. And then he said that he was just stunned, and he thought the knight would survive. He made the assumption that the knights were retreating with the knights on their tail. After which he turned around and said that the adventurers wouldn't get away with this, looking at the people. Colette added that she was sure her master would take care of it, while Ariak replied that he did not want to be the center of attention, but things were worse than he expected. Ozim punched the counter, breaking it a little and leaving a dent. He shouted loudly for everyone to gather. And then he began to say that they, the adventurers, would hear about this more than once, and all their fuss would not improve the situation, so if they did not do this, they would still be ground into dust. The guild leader himself was shaking, but he managed to stop the noise of the people in the building. They said it was true. Ariak looked at them, and the people began to talk about how they were going to cope, because no one wanted to die like a dog. And then the guy said that some of them would just pitch in. Colette was surprised by his intervention. After which he approached the head of the guild of this town, and Ozim did not understand what the guy wanted. Ariak, in turn, with an indifferent expression on his face, threw a bag of coins in front of him. Then he took the coin and asked with a smile why Oshima didn't let him become the head of one of these guilds. Ozim asked Ariak if he had really decided to take this on himself. The boy looked him in the eye. The guild leader raised his voice and reminded them that the demon forest monsters were approaching them with a horde, and asked what he could do. Ariak asked him not to say that. And then he asked the guildmaster what the reward for this cleansing was. Ozim was unhappy that he was asking about it now. The man replied that it was only 1 gold coin, so he was risking his life too cheaply. Ariak replied that he completely agreed with him, and Colette asked what he was getting at. The hero replied that it was simple. If an employer did not pay a fair wage, people would not work for him. Ariak began to climb the reception desk, and Ozum asked what he was doing. Once he had climbed, Ariak attracted the attention of all the people and said that he was sure that this would be enough. People began to ask what he was doing, and others answered that he should be left alone. Ariak then took the bag he had placed in front of the guild leader and, with an emotionless face, emptied all of its contents onto the floor. A pile of coins appeared in front of the people, and they did not understand what was happening, watching in confusion. Ariak shouted that he promised a reward from himself to anyone who would take part in this battle to the end. Namely, 100 gold coins per head. People were shocked by these words and said that it was impossible and it was just a verbal agreement. However, the hero added that it would be spread as a treaty according to the laws of the Great Kingdom. It would be a contract between them. He then waved his hand and shouted that in order to protect this city, they must stand up and follow him. People looked at the guy silently and excitedly. Everyone was thinking about their own things, and Colette looked with admiration. After that, they began to discuss whether it would be right. Another said that this was his hometown, and the third that he would not allow some monster to rule it. Then they all said that there was nowhere to run anyway, so they would rather return home to their family with a lot of money. All the people started shouting that they would do it, and offered to show everything they were capable of. Show the monsters what result they could expect. Ariak smiled at this reaction, continuing to stand at the reception desk, while Colette watched in surprise. Ozum caught the general mood and shouted out a proposal that in this case they should prepare. People began to check their equipment and gear, as well as various herbs and potions. The guild workers said that this was all the fuse of the recovery rations that they were given, and as soon as they were ready, everyone would follow the advanced detachment. Ariak stood behind Ozum and remarked that this was very clever. Colette was next to him, looking at everything carefully. Ozum approached the guy and said that if it weren't for him, they wouldn't even be on the front lines. It was only thanks to his generosity and the speech he gave. The guy thanked him for these compliments. Ozum also added that he was wondering who would listen to a guy with a C rank and one with a revoked license. And he said his thoughts about how Ariak was a bit like a passerby. He wondered if he really was the incompetent Ariak they were talking about. Colette was angry at these words and said that he had the audacity to call her master incompetent at this stage of his career, and also that she did not forgive him for what he did to the horse. She called Ozum a bald muscular guy, and he responded with confusion that he was sorry about it. Ariak apologized but said it was true, he really did bribe him. Because money is what makes people's lives livable, and it's the job of those in charge to pay people well. So sending people to their deaths for just 1 gold coin is outrageous. Colette smiled brightly and said that she understood what the guy was getting at, and Ozum wondered how he managed to get hold of such a large sum of money. Ariak replied nonchalantly that it was just his savings. The guild leader was amazed at the amount of money only because of the savings. The guy said that the hero's team only carries out high-ranking, expensive tasks. However, he is a traveler who has no connection to this city. So the guild leader asked if he owed anything to anyone in this city. Ariak replied that there was a restaurant with a green roof on the main street. Ozum asked what was so special about it. The hero replied that they served delicious mussel pasta there. So he would be upset if they couldn't eat there. Ozum was shocked by these words. He smiled and said that that explained a lot, then patted him on the back and said that he would buy him the paste as a reward for returning from there alive. Ariak refused. At that moment, a man came up to the man and said that they were ready. Ozum stood in front of the others. And he began to say that this town of doctors had only a moat and a fence, and this meant that if their last line of defense was broken, the city would be destroyed. So the strategy is quite simple. In the rear, magic specialists will treat the wounded and support the front line. An enemy whose army is destroyed can be said to be hopeless, but they must win. Then he raised his voice and raised his hand up, shouting that they must win and return. Ariak and Colette watched from their perch. The girl said that morale seemed quite high. She added that she could hear the earth shaking from the hordes of demons in the distance. There were about 1,000 of them, and no more than 100 adventurers. So she doesn't think they have a chance. Ariak replied that it might be difficult. The girl asked if he meant that her master would destroy them all in one fell swoop. Ariak explained that even if they did nothing, the heroes would come and take care of everything, and that would do them no good in the long run. So if they don't have the confidence to fight their own battles, then they won't be able to defend their cities when the same thing happens, so they need people to work together, fight and win. Colette was surprised to see that Ariak had gone too far, and then saw an explosion in the sky. She looked and said that it had already begun. Ariak turned and called her to follow him. He said that the people must win through the power of the people, and there is no doubt about it. However, in his opinion, supporting them is the maximum he is prepared to do. Some time passed. People gathered 4 kilometers northeast of the city of Medicine in the last line of defense. Ossum shouted that their center was bursting at the seams, so everyone should hit it. The goblins attacked the people who were already exhausted from the battle and wounded, but Ossum saved one of them. The guy was glad that he wasn't dead yet, and the guild leader shouted that everyone with less than a third of their health points should step back and let the healers patch them up. He said that everyone needed to hurry up with the magical enhancement of the attackers. There was a flash and a roar behind him. Ozim said that it was another explosion, and asked if the Nigor brothers were responsible for the defense of that place. The unknown man swung his fist with brass knuckles and shouted, then hit the ground, leaving a small crater there. Another man nearby was swinging a sword, holding it with both hands. They stood back to back. The swordsman asked his brother what they should do, since one of the healers had run out of mana for spells. The goblin stabbed the man with the knuckle dusters in the shoulder, and the swordsman turned around worriedly to check on his condition. The wounded man told his brother to look ahead because the enemy would not wait for him. At that moment, the goblin with a club attacked him. He shouted that he should not even think about surrendering, because if they lost this fight, then their homeland would be finished. At this point, a knight approached Ozum and said that the left flank was suffering heavy losses, and the Neil brothers were wounded and they were on the verge. Ozum ordered not to let them break through and to keep reserve recovery potions ready. The knight also told the guildmaster that the right flank was also requesting reinforcements. There appeared Gudraks, monsters that look like caterpillars. That's why they need 3 A-rank adventurers. Ozum angrily shouted that they couldn't provide them, so the guy should tell them to take care of it themselves. He said that he also has problems because they are in the minority, and the enemies do not even think about stopping. The knight called the guildmaster again, and he angrily asked what it was this time. The knight pointed his finger in front of him. All the knights nearby also looked in that direction. Ossum turned around and his pupils dilated. A huge monster, several times larger than an ordinary man, with horns and fangs, appeared before the adventurers of the City of Medicine. The warriors couldn't believe their eyes. Ossum stuttered out the word Sanguk. It was the Cannibal King. People said that it couldn't be. There was a monster of rank S in front of them. They were terrified. The Cannibal King began to suck in air with his mouth, and Ossum, noticing this, ordered everyone to retreat quickly. The monster began to scream furiously and deafeningly, opening its huge mouth. Its pupils were black. People retreated quickly. However, due to the scream, they fell to the ground. Only a few were able to stand on their knees. The adventurers could not control their own bodies. Ossum looked around at his comrades, and he began to call for a healer, while the Ogre King looked down on them. The people were calling for anyone who could move. The goblins and other monsters decided not to waste time and began to approach the immobilized elf among the warriors. The girl closed her eyes, accepting her death, and blood flew. However, it was not hers, but the monster's. Ariak chopped off the head of a goblin swinging his axe in front of the adventurer. She opened her eyes in surprise and saw the hero's back, or rather, his black cloak. The head lay separately on the ground, and the girl could not say a word. The boy told her that it was the skill of the Cannibal King called intimidation. Then he turned to her over his shoulder and asked if she was hurt, because an ordinary adventurer simply couldn't cope. The girl looked at Ariak with admiration and said that everything was fine, thanking him on behalf of the elves. Colette, with an intimidating smile, jealously answered for Ariak that she was glad she was okay. Ossum, who was lying on the ground, called out to the hero. The guy greeted the guild leader, and also added that he looked better than Ariak expected. Ossum asked him not to say stupid things. He asked why Ariak was here, since he was a C rank. He thought the guy would die in an instant. Ariak looked at Ossum and told him that, in fact, they were the ones who did what he asked them to do. Then he got into a fighting pose in front of the Cannibal King and said that they would definitely win. Colette was warming up her hands nearby. Ariak waved his hand, turning to the other adventurers and shouting that there was still more to come. He then activated his skill and encouraged everyone to rise to their feet by extending his hand forward. The guy used a spell to increase mental stability. People began to come to their senses. And then they rose to their feet in surprise, feeling their own bodies very light and surprised that they could move. Ariak turned to Colette and said that now they could defeat the cannibal king. The girl ran happily. Then she bounced off the ground with a mischievous smile, leaving a small dent on it, and spun in the air. After which she used the dragon's fiery breath on the army of goblins and other monsters. The adventurers were amazed by its power, and covered their eyes with their hands from the flash and fragments of earth. The girl then landed on the ground and turned to the hero, asking what he would say, whether she had lived up to his expectations. Osum asked worriedly who the little girl was. Ariak replied that they were still causing a big stir. The guild leader said they had some time left, but the enemy was still advancing. Ariak asked him for a minute. And then he said that it was hard to overcome the difference in level with tactics alone. It was very hard to defend against an enemy that outnumbered them 10-1 when their defenses were so weak. Osum noted that he knew this very well. Ariak replied that he wanted to say that the problem was in the numbers. The guy seriously stated that he would use the skills to increase his stats tenfold. Osum was shocked by these words and asked again. Ariak squatted down and said that he would reduce the opponent's statistics by 10 times. This would change the gap in strength. Osum assured the boy that it was impossible and he would not be able to do it 10 times. Besides, he would not be able to defeat this horde of enemies. The boy seriously replied that he could. And then he assured him that he shouldn't worry, and all he needed to think about was how to win. Ariak then placed his hand on the ground and activated the skill, Total Harm. A magical seal appeared under his feet. The adventurers looked at the white balls of light that appeared in surprise and began to catch them with their hands. The guy thought about using the skill on all the adventurers on the target field. Osum was extremely surprised that he could do this to everyone, because there were hundreds of them. Then Ariak put his finger to his forehead and said that he would start with the skill Damage Reduction. It reduces the amount of damage received from enemies. The guild leader looked at his hand, saying it tickled. Then he said he didn't think it would close the tenfold gap in strength. Ariak asked who said it was the end. Then the guy increased his speed of movement with the skill Agility. People noticed how their body became light. Third, Ariak has increased the accuracy of dodging attacks. This will prevent attacks from directly hitting adventurers. The fourth skill is Invulnerability, which gives them a high chance of ignoring damage and activates the state of its absence. The fifth skill is Chaotic Dodge, which increases the chance of dodging without taking damage. This will ensure that they will never take damage. The adventurers couldn't believe that they had been improved so much and thought that it was enough to fight. Ariak said that the sixth skill gives them a percentage damage reduction. Everyone was amazed that there was more. However, he began to impose more resistance, increase in power and attack coefficient, added the effect of poison, recovery of condition, strength, magic resistance, defense, critical speed. Everyone was shocked. The 20th skill in line was a critical power boost. No one could believe the 20 boost, and Ariak chose the next one. The adventurers were surprised by the variety, and then noticed another wave of enemies. Wondering where so many of them came from, everyone wondered if they really had 20 skills. The elf girl, whom Ariak saved, took the sword and killed several monsters at once with one swing. She looked at the sword and said it was amazing, noting that the body didn't feel like it was hers. The other adventurers shouted that it was unbelievable and that it was a lie that they were on a battlefield. Osum also killed a horde of monsters and said that this power is slightly fluctuating. He could not believe that it was possible to combine 20 skills, because usually they say that the maximum is 3. Ariak asked in surprise if this was true, since he usually did this when he was in the hero's party. The adventurers were surprised by these words, and he replied that after careful research, he activated the maximum number of skills. People asked what he meant, that the hero's party always fought in such a strengthened state. They noted that anyone could win the battle. They wondered if this meant that the heroes group that had performed feats so far consisted of Ariak and others. Colette stepped forward and said that she had heard that the boy had been unilaterally kicked out of the group, and she could not accept such disrespectful treatment of him. Ariak asked the girl not to say that as he approached her. He added that they had decided they could do without his skills. The guy said he respected their opinion, but it was time for him to let their children go. The adventurers looked at him strangely when he called them his children. Ariak considered that maybe it wasn't, wondering if they were okay. Not that he was worried, but he was concerned. Colette had noticed that he wasn't himself when it came to heroes. The humans called out to them, saying that they had no time to chat, because more monsters would come. The humans began to advance, shouting that they would win with Ariak's blessing. They started fighting, and the guy said they had to make the Ogre King stop being like that. Colette asked if that was a good thing. After all, the monster didn't move. However, there was one, but he wasn't going to make his move while he could get by with small monsters. Colette noted that there was time to spare, and even with her master's skills, it would be too much for a mere mortal. Ariak replied that it was true that the orcs were strong. But there is a strange thing. The monsters that appear in the early stages of the Demon Forest, the Wasteland, did not appear at all. No matter how you look at it, a monster of the second stage, vertebrate, or even a higher level, what is it? Colette asked excitedly if it was interesting. Ariak looked at the girl strangely. And he said that maybe he should have left her in the guild. Colette winced and said that he wouldn't have done that. The boy said that in any case, defeating the orc cannot be accomplished by adventurers alone. Colette confirmed his words. The Cannibal King looked at the heroes with a grin as they rushed towards him. Ariak shouted that he had started moving. The girl called the guy to follow her, and they approached the monster, against which they were incredibly small. The Cannibal King at this moment extended his huge hand towards the adventurers fighting the small monsters. Ariak was surprised that he was aiming towards the humans, looking back at the adventurers. The Cannibal King slammed his palm down on the ground, leaving a large dent in its place. The boy said he didn't like it when he screamed so loudly and often. Colette said they would fix that now, and jumped. With a terrifying expression on her face, she waved her hand in the air and said that she would now close his mouth a little. And she punched him in the face, landing on his shoulder. The Cannibal King ducked to the side. At this point, Ariak remained on the ground and, crouching, began to use a spell. He concentrated and started by strengthening his muscles, expanding his strike zone, and improving his attack power. And then continued with the destruction of individual parts, precise hits, armor penetration, paralysis, and critical enhancement. After which he approached the orc and kicked the king of the cannibals in the leg. The huge orc began to fall on his back after the blow, destroying the ground with his size. The adventurers couldn't believe that such a huge monster fell so easily. Colette said that she expected it. However, the king of the cannibals grabbed the dragon girl by the tail and threw her to the side, hitting the ground. Colette was badly hurt by the blow, and Ariak called out to her excitedly, wanting to know how she was. The boy told the guild leader that it was bad, and he replied that the little girl would die. Ariak denied this. He said that was not what he meant by bad. Osim asked again, confused. However, the girl leaned on her hands after the blow and began to stand up. Ariak and Osim watched her closely. The girl, in a rage, said that she would never forgive the monster, and then offered her master to show what they were capable of. The boy agreed with a sigh, adding that he was, after all, her dragon knight. He began to approach her. Then he hit his chest and said that he wanted her to experience this power. A bald man punches the animal, yelling for it to take the hit. Behind him, a dark-haired guy prepares to attack. The leader wipes the sweat from his face and says that it was the last one, and his subordinate says that the left wing was handed over, that they were finished with destroying the monsters. The leader accepts this information and tells them to go help the detachment in the forest. He obeys him. The leader shouts to Ariake that they are done here and that there is only one left. At this point, his gaze freezes in shock. The huge monster screams. The men tremble in fear and close their eyes, saying that he is starting again. Corelio speaks to her master, suggesting to end this already. She is confident, and speaks without emotion. The master thinks that Corelio is quite strong. He can't argue with that, but will she be able to handle the title of Sacred Dragon? And he is afraid of the consequences, since it is a big responsibility. Corelio is given many abilities, and she is indignant that there are so many, and that he underestimates her. He apologizes and says that this is his habit since the time when he was in the party of heroes. Corelio smirks and says that if she considers this as an expression of love for her, then she is filled with strength. He looks at her in shock and does not understand what this feeling is. Like a resonance, something is emerging. Sacred dragons mostly take power from their masters, the Dragon Knights, and thus unlock their potential. He tells her in his mind that if she really is a sacred dragon, then she should use his power as a Dragon Knight. He gives her the skill of a decisive battle. He tells her to show her true form. She is the divine dragon Gespent. The huge dragon breathes. Steam is visible from her mouth. All the guys, covered in bruises and blood, look at the dragon in shock. Even the leader looks with eyes full of shock and horror. A huge dragon against a monster. The decisive battle skill is a skill that restores all power for a while, so it is called that because it is used to deliver the final blow. With his help, she will not have to hold back, she will show all the power she is capable of. She addresses the Ogre King and says that her master, the Dragon Knight Ariak Mihama, and she, Koleto de Broisis, will judge him. The dragon takes in air to release flames. She directs the fire at the Ogre King, causing a huge explosion. Even Ariak uses his elbow to shield himself from the force of the blow. The leader looks up in horror and sees only smoke from the fire. Everyone is shocked, saying, "Wow, the Ogre King is gone without a trace." Colette turns back into a girl and falls down. Ariake catches her easily and tells her that she did well. She smiles and says that it was a pleasure to release all her power. Everyone looks and says with admiration that this is the hero, how cool it is. The leader falls heavily and says at length that it is over. Ariake turns around and says that they have defeated the Ogre King, so they are no longer in danger. Suddenly, something bright flashes in the sky. The leader says that this is a sign that the detachment from the forest has finished its battle. The other soldiers smile and say that it really is over. They shout that a miracle has happened. At this point, Ariake becomes indignant and asks them if this can be called a miracle. The soldiers turn to him in surprise. He states that this victory is not at all a coincidence. It is all their merit, their treasure, their invested work. He tells them that they did not give up no matter what, and reached the very end. They won this victory by risking their lives. Ariake suggests that they all return to the city. He and Koleto turn away while the others squeal in joy and happiness. Ariake says that this is a triumph for the heroes. They return to the city. The soldiers' families greet them warmly. Ariake and Colette watch them and then leave. They are asked if they are leaving already, and he replies that yes, he is leaving because he has had enough rest. The soldiers say worriedly that they have not repaid their debts. Ariake remembers how he has been treated with too much respect these last few days and says that he has had enough. The leader turns to the boys and says that they shouldn't hold him so tightly. Ariake tells Oshima that they owe him a lot. Here Oshimu gets down on his knees, puts his hand on his heart and says that he once again asks for forgiveness for all his antics. He revokes his license. He says that regarding the deprivation he raised his city and directed it towards the kingdom. Ariake says wearily that it really wasn't worth doing at all. He adds, telling him to stop standing like that. Oshimu stands up and says that it's called formality. He smiles and tells him to come to them anytime. Next time he will treat him to pasta. Ariake says he can't wait and shakes his hand. Oshimu wishes him luck, and he says he and Colette hope everything goes well. Colette and Ariake are riding in a carriage. She shouts that the sacred dragon form was still beautiful. She keeps fussing and saying that it happened with his skill and that it was a wonderful sight. She asks him where they are going now. He answers, looking at the paper, that they are going to the city of the Order. They are going there on business. He notices the girl's reaction and asks if something is wrong. She asks if they are really going to pass by the fertility forest, since elves live there. Colette shouts that she heard that they are quite difficult to communicate with. He agrees and says that in his opinion there are reasons for that. Colette tells him not to worry. If they start bothering him, she will burn them all down, including the forest. Ariake asks her to stop thinking like that. Although, maybe he worries too much. He hasn't received messages from Bibia for a long time, so all sorts of bad thoughts come to mind. He probably winds himself up too much. Suddenly, a bun is shoved into his mouth, which brings him back to reality. Colette tells him not to think about the bad. She offers to fill their hungry stomachs. Ariake agrees and thinks that there is no need to worry. They are probably coping. They continue on their way. At this time, Bibia barely walks through the dark place, bleeding. He indignantly says, is he really still called a hero? If this continues, they will all die. He does not understand why this monster appeared here and now. Someone is breathing heavily. They are shouting at him to go faster. Parara barely says that she can't go anymore. Urga turns to Bibia and says that Parara and Alicia. Here, Bibia shouts at Urge to shut up. He forbids him to talk about those who are not here, and that he needs to run faster before the enemies catch up. Then the monster appears right behind Bibia. He doesn't have time to dodge as the monster attacks. He hits his back on the stone. Urga steps forward and defends himself with his shield. Bibia asks him discontentedly why he is taking so long. Let him do his job properly. He replies that he is working, as always. Bibia despairs and thinks that the healing potions are already at 0. After all, this is an ordinary dungeon. He doesn't understand how it happened that he, a hero of the S rank, he got into such a situation. He lowers his eyes in horror. A few hours ago, in the cursed cave, Bibia goes and says that he thinks they can get to layer 50. Urga agrees and says that this is not the first time. The girl says that it is. 50 words are just right for a C rank. It will be easy since he also has a person with an S rank. Here the blonde asks them if they have prepared items for battles. She is a little worried that something might go wrong. Bibia turns around and says that on such an easy hike, taking special items with you is completely unnecessary. Alicia says that while Ariak is gone, they should at least be prepared. He tells Alicia that she is too worried. Purara says that indeed, how could this useless guy's departure affect them? She asks with a grin if she really doubts their magical support. She has completely stopped trusting people. Alicia sadly replies that she didn't mean it. Then Purara starts screaming, what kind of attitude is this towards her? Bibia tells Purara to stop. He tells Purara that since Ariaki isn't with them, it's her job to light the way. She sighs and says that it's kind of awkward of course, but okay. He tells her not to worry, as a great man like her can handle it easily. She smiles and replies that she can handle it. He laughs and says that it will be easier to walk without the load. Delia also agrees with Mr. Bibia. Delia replies that, of course, she will be useful to him. He grins. Bibia thinks it's great, and Delia and Purara are in love with him, so it will be easy to manipulate them. He reflects that Alicia is quite a complicated girl, but soon she will also belong to him, because he was chosen as a hero who will save the world. He convinces himself that he will make this whole world his own and will rule it as he wants. He tells the girls that they will quickly cope and come back and celebrate. Alicia looks and says that there is nothing to be done, she warned them. They go underground. They are scared by a common bat. Purara exhales and says that she was so scared. Bibia looks at her angrily and sternly calls her by name. He tells her to do something about this light already. They don't even see the enemies approaching. Purara asks him not to be so angry. She says, offended, that she is trying as best she can. He asks in anger if that is all she can do. He shouts that Ariake lit up the entire cave without any effort. Purara agrees with him. Then Alicia says that there is no one else who could do the same. She explains that inside the dungeons, living and non-living, everything is saturated with magic down to the smallest detail, and they are unable to control this magic to illuminate the entire cave. She says that Ariake told her so. Offended, Bibia says that even a fool can see it. Then a huge spider jumps on Bibia. Here, Delia punches this monster, then gets up and asks him to stop talking about him and suggests moving on. Then the same spider jumps on them again. She doesn't have time to turn around as Urga stands up to defend herself. Bibia is indignant and asks why she didn't kill him since it always worked the first time. Then the evil Delia hits the spider several times so that the spider is imprinted on the ground. Bibia asks if she really killed it. Urga checks and reports that it is dead. Delia doesn't understand why she didn't succeed the first time. Urga says that it wasn't that easy for him to fight back either. Bibia is indignant. What's wrong with them today? He starts shouting that they are of no use to him at all. Then all the guys turn to him and ask why he is doing this. Bibia falls silent and then apologizes, saying that he got carried away. He turns to Purara and says that she is trying too. The main thing is that you can see where they are going, so everything is fine. Delia smiles and says everything is fine. Bibia says there has been a lot of stress lately, but they will cope together because they are his heroes. He turns to Purara and apologizes for yelling at her. She replies that it's okay, although she was a little scared. Bibia suggests they continue walking. Alicia asks if everything is really okay. Bibia turns to her and asks, and she says cautiously that they are not used to fighting in the dark and in such conditions. She suggests that maybe they should go back and redo the plan. Delia yells at her how dare she say that. Bibia tells Delia that everything is fine and that Alicia is just worried about everyone. He tells her that this is not like her. He asks if she really considers the option of turning her back on the enemy and running away. He says with a terrifying face that this will not happen. They will continue on their path. This is his decision, the decision of a hero. Alicia falls silent. Purara tells him he's so good. Delia says he's a real leader. Bibia just agrees, saying it's natural. Bibia asks Alicia again. She doesn't answer and turns her back to him and leaves. Bibia thinks to herself in rage how she has the courage to contradict him and ignore him, how it infuriates him, how irritates him. He thinks about how else to return so that he, the hero, does not pass the C-rank dungeon. If this happens, then how can he be trusted to manage the kingdom? They walk, he keeps thinking that this Kureta isn't shining properly either. That's why they stumble, he's not to blame for anything. And for some reason Delia and are also motionless today, he pulls them all up. Bibia looks around and turns to Delia, saying that they have already passed here. Are they really lost? Delia awkwardly tells him that it is so dark here, it is hard to see everything. Bibia reproachfully tells her that she has a map, they are not here for the first time. He shouts again that Ariake showed them the way here, so what's the problem? Alicia only replies that she's just not Ariake, that's all. She touches the wall and says that the map isn't finished, so there might be problems with it, and even if it were finished, they wouldn't be able to handle it in the dark anyway. She says that the mark here is the sign that Ariake left last time. If they turn here, they can go down. Bibia is indignant, she couldn't have said that earlier. Alicia asks again if they are sure, it's only the 25th floor, they've only gone halfway, but they're all obviously exhausted and tired, Arika would have told them to go back. She asks Bibia if he's taking responsibility for the party. Bibia tells her that she hasn't mentioned it before, she says that she needs to think carefully, because it could be more dangerous later. He shouts that he will take it without any problems. The conditions have only changed a little and that's enough with his Ariake. He says that we need to go down quickly, and then dark magic envelops the atmosphere. Everyone freezes in horror. Delia, trembling, asks what just happened. Kureta asks if it could be the boss. Bibia is still indignant and says that it can't be in such a place. Alicia looks and says he's coming. Delia asks if she's serious. Bibia yells at them to get ready, and they, hesitant, ask them to wait. Then a zombie comes out with his sword. Bibia says that it is an ordinary knight's corpse. The girls breathe a sigh of relief. Bibia says they can calm down, he is not dangerous, now they will kill him. He admits that he scared him. He pulls out a sword and says that such iron things from the C-rank dungeons are no match for an S-rank hero. He attacks the zombies. Kureta in the background tells him that he is so beautiful. He agrees without embarrassment and says that maybe it turned out a little sloppy. Suddenly, he sees a zombie knife stuck in his stomach. He doesn't understand what's happening. He coughs. The girls look on in horror. Blood is flowing from him. Bibia does not understand why he is alive. He killed him. The headless zombie stands with a sword, and his head laughs separately. Bibia realizes that he has been wounded. Does he really have a hole in his stomach? He holds the sword tightly and starts screaming that it is impossible. Bibia is in pain, so much pain that he can't move. The zombie pulls the sword out of him and turns away from him. Bibia falls. Then comes out and shouts to Bibia to be careful. He doesn't have time to attack, as the skeleton moves. Turns around and says he's too fast. The skeleton lands next to his laughing head and lifts it up. Bibia, barely alive, says that it's bad because he somehow escaped, but Urg's blow didn't work. Delia is shocked that Mr. Bibia is injured and Urg's attacks are not working, and that a mere knight's corpse would be so strong. Kureta reproachfully asks what he is saying. The skeleton puts on his head. Kureta says that it can't be that the knight's corpse is that strong. It's a monster that's over level 20, they've always dealt with them. The skeleton attacks who fights back but can barely stand on his feet. Bibia shouts indignantly, "What is he doing? Let him fight back. Does he really only have muscles to show off?" tells him to shut up. What kind of talk is this? Since when did he become so smart? Bibia shouts, does he even understand who he is dealing with? Then Delia comes out and yells that the two of them are in the way, so she'll try to attack. She punches the skeleton. However, the skeleton stands still and continues to smile. Delia is horrified. Did it really not work? She strikes with an uppercut from below. But then the skeleton puts his hand on her stomach, and she flies away from him in an instant. She hits her back against the wall, and blood comes out of her mouth. Says in horror that she was defeated so easily. Kureta panics and says that it is impossible, it should not be like this. Bibia turns to Kureta and tells her to use healing magic. She shouts that she has been using it for a long time, and the attack and defense powers are the same as always. Bibia asks again if he is, as always, declaring that this cannot be. His face is filled with despair. He wonders if this is their true strength. Then, the skeleton attacks who falls down in shock. Bibia watches this. Bibia keeps repeating that it's a lie. It's all a lie. He's an S-rank hero and he can't lose to someone like him. He screams in rage. How could this happen? Then Alicia uses her powers, healing space with the breath of an angel. Numerous feathers cover the cave. And Delia slowly wake up. Bibia looks at Alicia. Alicia tells him that he will answer his question, and the answer is, it's because Ariak is not here. Bibia is indignant. Why is she talking about him now? He was always at the end of the line, his role was insignificant, now he has nothing to do with it. Alicia pours the potion on the zombie, causing it to fall. Alicia says that she'll explain what's going on, they'll never figure it out themselves. She explains that all of their skills worked well only because Ariak supported them with his skill. With such abilities, he could easily become an A-rank adventurer. Bibia shouts that this is not true, and that their strength is their own merit. He assures that this is his true strength. Alicia says that Ariak explained it to them all, but they didn't seem to hear. She tells them to think as they wish. Alicia says lovingly, looking away and blushing, that this man would not worry about such things. Bibia doesn't understand anything. She coughs and says that they have more or less restored everything and can walk. She suggests restoring the formation. She says that now that Ariak is not with them, she doesn't know if they will be able to achieve victories, however. Bibia is horrified by this information. Alicia asks if they don't mind, because otherwise they will all die. Everyone looks at her. She turns away, leaves and calls everyone to follow her, saying that they will leave this dungeon. They keep going and going, Bibia shouting that they are only at layer 15, but his stamina is leaving him. He turns to Alicia and asks if she can do better. She replies that she can, but doesn't see the point because their MP is almost 0. He says that they will then recover with the help of items. Alicia says that they don't have many of those either. He turns to Parara and asks, she had them with her, let her give them to him. She refuses and says that she needs them herself. She says that she needs to use magic too. Bibia says that she doesn't use it at all. She replies that she is restoring her strength. Her magic is now over 10,000. Alicia asks Alicia if it's true, what Parara just said. Is it really so? Parara doesn't understand why he's doing this. Alicia sighs and says she'll tell him the truth if that's what he wants. She states that Parara has almost no magic left. Parara starts to get indignant. Alicia immediately says that she can show the light around them as proof. Delia says that it is indeed darker than before. Bibia angrily addresses Parara, who makes excuses, saying that she spent a lot of magic. It is natural, but she is trying to restore it. Alicia asks Parara if she knew that her magic was 10,000 only because Ariak was there and supported her with his skill. She is indignant, Alicia says, that means she didn't listen to him either. Parara starts laughing nervously and asks what nonsense this is. She grabs Alicia and tells her not to talk nonsense. She screams that she used to suffer because of her words, and now she is pretending to be special, so she shouldn't behave like that. Urga wants to say something to Parara. Alicia tells her that she pretended to be strong, although in reality she is not. Maybe she should stop acting like that. Parara attacks her, screaming at her to shut her filthy mouth. Delia and Urga freeze in place, waiting to see what will happen. Then a voice starts saying how noisy they are, gathered in a small flock, and making so much noise that they even prevent you from sleeping. Bibia, horrified, asks to pinch him. They see a huge Fenrir in front of them. They don't understand why a level 99 monster is here. They raise their heads in horror and do not understand what Fenrir is doing here in this dungeon. Fenrir says that since they came here of their own free will, they are either just insignificant bugs, or they want to become his lunch. Bibia thinks that the Helgard dog is a Fenrir. This thirst for blood amazes him. According to rumors, he lives on the 99th level. Then why did he come down here, to the lower floors? Parara says that even S-rank adventurers can barely handle him, so they have to run. Bibia tells her not to make any sudden moves. If they provoke him, they will be destroyed in an instant. Bibia is sure that they would have been able to fight him before, but now they have no choice but to run. But their enemy is Fenrir. It's so easy for me to run away, they have to make someone a bait. He looks at Alicia and thinks that she is an S-rank adventurer like him, and they also need her as a healer. He thinks that Eligar can still be used as a tank. Delia also plays an important role in the fight. After recovery, she will be able to move. Only Parara remains. She turns to him and suggests that they wait for the right moment, and then Bibia hits her in the stomach. She falls and screams what happened. Parara screams in pain. Bibia looks for something. Urga comes and asks what happened here. Bibia takes the potions from her and says that as expected, she had a stash hidden all this time, he will take it all for the escape. Urga shouts that maybe this is not the time for a fight. Bibia calls him stupid and shouts that he needs to call for help, it's the only way out. Urga asks if he means they will leave Parara here. He says they can't abandon her. Bibia says that Parara no longer has any magical power, so it is better for them to move on. Those who can still fight, if they cannot get out, then there will be no one to call for help. They leave. Parara calls for the hero. Delia says from behind that this is how it is. If they do not hurry to call for help, Parara asks Delia to wait, and that this is probably a joke. Bibia tells Parara not to worry, to be patient until help arrives. In his mind, he tells her to make sure she buys enough time as bait before she dies. Bibia tells Alicia to follow them, then she says no, she will stay and hold off the Fenrir. Bibia asks what she is even talking about. Suddenly, a barrier appears. Alicia asks them to leave. Bibia sees the magical barrier and thinks that it can buy time to escape. He shouts that he understands everything and asks them to hold out until help arrives. Bibia and the others run away. As they run, Bibia thinks that the saint has been useful up until now, so her leaving the group is a big loss. If his life is saved at the expense of the other two, won't it come back to haunt him? Delia and Urga freeze in place. She asks Bibia to wait. They end up running after him. Parara asks if this is a joke, if they are really going to abandon them. She keeps shouting that they are comrades. Are they really? She bangs on the barrier and shouts that she will never forgive them. She curses them. Fenrir says that he can kill him instantly. She won't even have time to curse. Parara freezes in fear. Alicia tells Fenrir that he has carte blanche to do so. He replies that he can indeed do so. Alicia says it's a bit disappointing, but it is what it is. She says if she were here alone, she would act differently. Parara asks her why she's been talking so long. She doesn't want to die. She asks for something to be done. Alicia asks Parara to be quiet for a minute. She closes her mouth. Alicia says not to worry, she is not going to die yet either. Fenrir says that she can see the determination in her eyes. She asks if she is taking revenge for her unfortunate comrades who escaped, or if it is about saving the world. Alicia replies that she doesn't care about this nonsense. She has only one hope, to meet Ariak and make love to him. Fenrir and Parara freeze in shock. Parara asks what she's talking about. She awkwardly replies that she's not talking and asks them not to listen to her. She blushes and says that they are talking about the only hero in the world, Mr. Ariake. Parara is shocked by her behavior. Parara asks her why he is useless without his unique skills. Alicia points the staff at her and tells her that she is disrespecting their hero. Alicia says it's not true that Ariak doesn't have unique skills. Parara says that's what the appraiser said. Alicia says that, to her, his existence itself is unique. They continue chatting in front of Fenrir. Alicia turns to Fenrir and apologizes, asking for a little time to talk. Parara is ashamed of this in the background. Fenrir says he doesn't mind, it looks like it will be interesting. Parara wonders if it's really possible. Alicia thanks him. Alicia says she has studied everything, books from all over the continent, and has come to the answer, guiding God. Isn't this his unique skill? Parara asks what kind of skill this is. Then she asks to wait and says that she has heard it somewhere before. Alicia replies that it is a fairy tale that is already 10,000 years old. When they were children, their grandmother from the outskirts told them this story. When a hero appears who will save the world, he is given the skill Escort God. Parara asks if she really means that Ariake is God. Alicia says no, it's more like a legendary expression. Ariake is not God himself, but chosen by him. In the tale, God also summoned a hero to save the world. Araki fits the description of such a person exactly. In terms of status assistance, item storage, and dungeon clearance, it was only thanks to his presence that their party was able to progress successfully. Alicia talks about the excellent support and asks if it was like that in the fairy tale. She doesn't know what to answer. Alicia turns to her and says that she already understands that the entire strength of the group lay on Ariak alone. She says that this fact has been confirmed by today's incident. Because it is so, Parara realizes this with fear. Then Fenrir asks them if they are done. Parara gets scared, and Alicia says that she took too much time. She already told about her beloved Ariak, so that's all. She tells Parara that all this will be useful to her, let her use it and catch up with the others. She lets her run. Parara says that she can't because she's too scared. Alicia responds emotionlessly that then they'll just kill her. Fenrir says that's right, it's nothing for him to kill the midges. Alicia asks if he should let the midges go then. Fenrir says that won't do, he's been here for a long time, and he's bored. Fenrir says that he will have fun with them, but then he presses his huge paws on the ground so that everything shakes. Parara immediately gets up and runs away with all the potions, screaming to save her. Alicia wonders if she really ran away, especially with what she gave her. Fenrir says that the barrier is down, he can go after her right now. Alicia sighs and says that she doesn't care. Fenrir senses that the atmosphere has changed. Alicia draws a circle on the ground and says that the barrier was not to let them escape, but to prevent her from being interrupted. Fenrir has a bad feeling about this. He shouts that they will finish talking, and then he will immediately attack. His huge paw is stopped by her pole. Alicia asks him with a smirk why he is surprised. Did he really think he could defeat her with one blow? Alicia retracts her pole, hitting Fenrir. She says that now they will fight in earnest. Alicia hits the Fenrir so hard that it flies back. It barely stands on its paws and stops. He says that for something like this to happen to him, Alicia is definitely not human. Alicia says that there is no support from Ariak now, so she is still weak. Fenrir is indignant that she is weaker than usual, but on par with her, yes, that cannot be. Alicia moves quickly and hits the monster from behind, but he manages to dodge the blow. Alicia's blow hits the entire ground. Fenrir says that this is inhuman strength. He asks where she learned these techniques. Alicia says she'll tell him. He points his finger at her and confidently shouts that she just trained too hard. Fenrir doesn't understand, then denies it and asks her not to lie. She says again that she trained like crazy. Fenrir assures that she is above the level for practice. Alicia asks him to listen. Fenrir is even uncomfortable. She tells him that she trained hard every day, and here is the result of her work on herself. She put so much effort into this. Fenrir asks her why she needs to become so strong. She screams that Ariak told her to become stronger. Fenrir is indignant. She is talking about him again. She says in her dreams that if she becomes stronger, she won't be ashamed to stand next to him. He is too strong. That's why he always saved her. But in that case, he won't even look at her as a girl. It is necessary to be balanced in strength. Otherwise, what good would she do? In short, she tried for Arake. Fenrir says that they used to say that she was a great saint, but she insists that this Arake is stronger than her. She says that of course it is. She says with embarrassment that he is so. She is not a great saint at all. She just wants Ariake to pay attention to her as a person. Fenrir asks, that is, he still doesn't look at her as a girl. As he listened, it feels like he looks at you more like a sister. Alicia says awkwardly that it's all a matter of time. In general, her strength is an indicator of her efforts to go through life with Ariake. It is the power of love. Fenrir laughs and says that she is quite interesting. He has never met a person like her. Alicia asks if he really enjoyed talking about Ariake. Then, Fenrir says no, and asks him to stop talking about him. Alicia asks him if he's locked up here. He says that, unfortunately, he is. He says that it looks like he will also meet his death here. His lonely life is boring, and therefore, now he wants to fight her. Alicia says that it all sounds sad somehow. Ariak wouldn't like it. She says this thoughtfully. After some thought, she suggests doing it this way. If she wins, he will grant her one wish. Fenrir agrees and says that he keeps his word. Alicia says that's great, and then she attacks, and Fenrir attacks her too. The walls end up with huge holes, and Fenrir is lying next to Alicia. Alicia breathes heavily and says that she has won. Fenrir stands up and says that he has lost, so let him ask for whatever she wants. He asks if she will choose his life and the elixir that gives the right to endless existence, or the legendary sword and treasure. Alicia tells Fenrir to become her pet. Fenrir looks at her in shock and does not understand. She says that he is so strong, and he himself said that he is already tired of being here. Alicia smiles widely and tells him to come with her. Fenrir replies that he can't. Alicia asks why. He said he would keep his word if he lost. Fenrir says that he is cursed and will never leave this dungeon alive. He can be her familiar, but while he is imprisoned in the dungeon, he cannot be of use to her. He asks her for forgiveness and says that he only dreamed of traveling with her for a short time. Alicia says that now that he is in limbo, she asks him to enter the item field. Fenrir does not understand anything. Alicia says that he said that he will not get out of here alive. She points her finger at him and says, that means if he dies, he will be able to get out. She asks if that is true. She says with a smile that he can easily get out of the dungeon. If he dies in the item box, he will be treated as an item. Fenrir asks her what she plans to do with the dead body. She replies that there is no problem, the body can be revived within a few hours of death. She says that she can use revival magic. Fenrir says that he understands about revival magic. As far as he knows, few mages can use it. Alicia says that it is, and that even Ariak praised her for knowing this magic, and how to use this box for items was his idea. She continues to blabber that she is proud of it because it is a technique that could only be achieved through his idea and her magic. Fenrir says that it is very good, it does not matter. Whether he dies or lives, he turns to Alicia and says that he is already glad that he met her, perhaps for the first and last time. He says that if he can really come back to life, he would like to meet the Ariak who made her say that. Alicia strokes him, smiles, and says that they can meet him, she will bring him back to life. The monster says that he is Fenrir, the 10th of the sacred beasts, of Alicia Lundeberg, and that he obeys her and her friend Ariak. He says that just as he did with the heroes of old, he swears to obey them just as he once obeyed his heroes, if not more. He says he'll get some sleep now. Alicia says that when they get outside, she'll find a big, private place to resuscitate him. Fenrir adds one thing, she probably misunderstood him, so he will tell her. Fenrir says that she is female, she can take human form, so if she can get out of here she will be side by side with her. Alicia is scared. Is she really a female? What does this mean that she will take human form? She asks to wait, but the Fenrir falls asleep. She screams that she has a bad feeling, maybe she is a very beautiful woman. Fenrir does not answer. Alicia panics and says that if that is the case then they should avoid Ariak meeting her, but she wants to show him that she turned Fenrir into a tame familiar. She sighs and says that it's okay, she finally has the chance she's been waiting for so long. Later at home, Bibia indignantly asks if she is leaving the group. He, Delia, and Urga are bandaged. Alicia says she really is leaving. Bibia says he's glad she made it out alive, but she shouldn't leave the group. She says she's already made up her mind. She says that she can't fight anymore. Thanks to this incident, she has a reason to leave them calmly. She was getting nervous because she couldn't leave the group of heroes right away because of her title, the daughter of the great saints. It seems that after a fierce battle with Fenrir, she was seriously injured and needs long-term treatment, so she leaves the group of heroes. How lucky she is. She sees Purara. She is sitting separately from everyone. Alicia was a little worried, but it seems she was able to return too. Urga says that it can't be helped. The next task would be easier if she stayed. Alicia asks about the next one. She is told that this is a letter from the kingdom. She reads that as a result of the council of the kingdom, the hero Bibia Harnua is sentenced to the following punishments. It talks about the confiscation of Langris's sacred sword. In addition, to return the holy sword, you need to complete a D-rank quest. Bibia is outraged that they are overreacting in the kingdom. The punishment is too harsh and it was only 2 days ago, they are judging quickly. Purara says that this is how seriously they take this. A hero who abandons his comrades and runs away is not worthy of the holy sword. Purara says of course not. Bibia grabs her by the collar and says that she also ran away without Alicia, so she shouldn't play the victim. Urga tells Bibia to stop this and stop talking about it and suggests talking about new members. Alicia asks if they have already recruited new members. He says yes, because they didn't have a porter this time and decided to invite one of their best. Urga says it's a porter named Vashta. Bibia shouts that he has a replacement for him. He suggests that they move on to the next task and fix this stupid mistake. Purara is sadly silent. Bibia says that he was given a D-rank task. He will complete it quickly and make the boys in the kingdom apologize at least once. Delia awkwardly agrees with him. Alicia says she'd better go. Bibia tells her he'll leave a free seat for her. Maybe she'll stay after all. Alicia says goodbye and tells him to take care of himself. Alicia walks down the street and then joyfully shouts, spreading her arms, that she is finally free, she can go to Ariak. She says she misses Ariak. It took a while, but she mentally asks Ariak to wait. She pulls out a doll in his form and says it is on its way to him. Shortly after Alicia's departure, Ariak and Colette save the town of Medicine from the danger of a group of demons. Ariak is unaware of the confiscation of the heroic group's sacred sword, while Ariak and Colette were heading to the fertile forest. Colette says that this is a fertile forest where elves live. She says that the forest is beautiful and vast. However, she sees that they are very happy to see them. The elves have surrounded them and are aiming their arrows at them. They turn to Eric and say that they are a proud elven people who guard these forests. Their leader, Master Hayes, has business with him, so he will go with them without questions. She says that if they resist, they can be sure that they will get what they deserve. Ariak says she doesn't think he wants him as a guest. What if he says no? She says they'll use force then. The arrows are fired, then Colette steps forward and sucks all the arrows into herself. They look at each other in shock. Colette angrily says that they have the nerve to order her master around, so burning them won't be enough. Ariak asks her to calm down. Ariak says she's sorry his partner set their guns on fire, but they don't deserve it either. He asks her to explain what's going on. The main elf says that he is a danger to the forest. If not with a bow and arrow, then let them drag him by the hand. Ariake gives his fist increased strength and tells them to calm down. That chapter says, what a monstrous power. With this power and a village that can control fire, he will further weaken this forest. Ariake says he's not some kind of catalyst for cataclysms. The woman screams that there's nothing to be done. She apologizes and says they have to do this to protect the forest. They all raise their hands, causing a wind to come up and envelop Ariake and Kureta. This is the guard of the King of the Winds. She says that this is the most powerful spell that the elves have. If they touch it, then they will be torn to pieces. She screams that if they don't want to be torn to pieces, they must kneel and surrender on the spot. Kureta asks Ariak if they can use her love flame to blow away the wind pressure. He replies that it would cause too much damage to the elves and the trees in the forest, asking her to be more restrained. She angrily says that it is impossible to be restrained after such a cruel act. Ariake says that this is such a ridiculous situation. He says that their bloodshot eyes, tired faces, they are out of their minds. They could take them prisoner, but in this state, they can't even have a normal dialogue with them. He says that they will calm them down by showing that they have no intention of attacking them. Ariake reaches his hand through the wind. He is immediately torn to pieces. He bleeds. The elf screams at him to be careful. He falls. She comes up and asks why he decided to kill himself. He gets up and says that it is hard to tell how strong he is when he is covered in blood. He is covered in blood and stone-faced, telling them not to worry, everything is fine, he has improved all his stats. She screams that he has lost so much blood. He replies that it's the least he can do to let them know he's not going to attack. He asks, even in this state, they still do not want to talk to him about this disaster, calling them the proud elven people. Then another elf comes and asks what she is doing. This is the great sage Ariak and Lady Colette. They should not touch them. The elf asks Princess Sarah what she is doing here. Ariak recognizes the princess. She comes to them. She introduces herself as Sarah, the sister of the elven leader, and asks for forgiveness for the rudeness of their people. She is out of breath and breathing heavily. She cries out that these are unfortunate people who, because of their love for the forest, are bound by old traditions and misunderstand what they should do. She asks him to have mercy on them. Ariak says she doesn't mind. The elf asks Princess Sareta to raise her head. She says that bowing down to this man is a disgrace to her family. Sareta tells her to watch her words. She says that these are the heroes who saved Medisun from 1,000 demons, the great sage Ariak and Colette. They have already heard these rumors. She screams that she does not believe such rumors. Colette says happily that the master is a celebrity, of course, but not to that extent. Ariak says that even the elves who avoid contact with the outside world have heard of him. The princess says that she saw it with her own eyes. Ariak and Colette don't understand. The princess says that she will never forget this experience. At that moment she was almost killed by an orc. Ariak gallantly saved her. Ariak and Colette freeze. Ariak asks only not to tell him that she was an elf adventurer back then. She confirms it. Colette says that can't be. She says she was good at pretending to be someone else when she ran away from the forest. The leader turns to the princess and asks if she's ever ventured out of the forest alone again. Ariak says she's a very attractive tomboy princess. That leader tells Ariaku that she is grateful to her for saving their princess. However, the princess happily says that they should express their gratitude. She tells them to come to the elven village. The chief asks them to wait for the princess and says that this is a disaster. Sarah says that she will hurt the princess by refusing the one who saved her life. Will she just forget about it? She says she understands this, and the least they can do is be polite. Colette happily asks if they can really go to the village. The princess tells Colette that she will show her around. The other elves are indignant. Are they sure she wants to let them into the village? The leader says that she will immediately send a message to Mr. Hayes. She speaks with concern that a disaster is coming to the village. They walk around the village. Colette joyfully says that this is an elf village, that it is so beautiful. Everyone closes doors and windows in front of them. Colette looks and says that there are many snags in this river. The princess explains that they are dead trees. They have come here with the current. Colette says that there are so many of them. Princess Sira asks them to go home with her for now. She asks them to come in and take as much as they want. They prepared all sorts of treats from fish and vegetation and set the table. Colette eats the bread and says it is very tasty. Ariak also enjoys the food. The princess says she is glad that they like it. Ariak says he didn't expect a home-cooked meal from the elven princess herself. She apologizes and says it's the only way she can repay him, asking him to call her simply Sarah. Colette asks her what this flirting is. She asks what she is talking about. Ariak remembers and tells Sarah that she has something to tell him. He asks to tell him why it is called the Sinister Forest and what is happening here now. The princess sighs sadly and begins to tell that the thing is that about a year ago in the fertile forest, one after another, the trees began to die. Colette asks if she means the dead tree trunk she mentioned earlier. She says yes, the area around this village has been less affected by the die-off. She asks if they can see them. Deep in the heart of the great forest, there is a terrible atmosphere. In this area all the trees are already dead, and this happens all the time, even on sunny days. Colette says she understands, it's an ominous dark cloud. Ariak says it's the effect of a magical element. But for some reason there seems to be a gathering of bad spirits, maybe monsters are starting to appear. The princess says that the trees in the forest that serve as protection have dried up and become unsafe. They are losing their nerves every day. If the forest continues to wither, the elves' survival will be at risk. Colette angrily says that doesn't mean they should blame the master for it. She replies that she agrees, but her brother says that he studied all the literature on this issue and came up with one answer. She says that the existence of Ariak, who is excluded from the party of heroes, is the cause of the disaster. Ariak asks if this could be related to the story of the pact between the heroes and the elves. Colette asks about the pact. In the past, previous heroes made a pact with the elves to protect them with the sacred blessing of the great forest. Even the elves, who hated humans, were kind to the heroes and was allowed to move freely in the great forest. The same applies to the current heroes. As an outcast from the party of heroes, he was considered a nuisance to others. She was also considered a nuisance by the elves who are allies of the heroes. Ariak says that trouble without the blessing of the holy heroes brings misfortune. The princess nods and says that he is right. Colette screams that she made it all up. The forest curse and their group's departure did not happen at the same time. She replies that it is, even if it is necessary to protect the forest. Her brother no longer sees any other way to solve this problem. The princess turns to Ariak and says that he is not a disaster, he is the hope that brings them salvation. She kneels and says that she knows it's a selfish request, but again, like in the city, she's asking to save their elf forest. Then the chief comes and shouts that this is not necessary. Princess Sarah shouts at her brother to stop. He tells Sarah that she brought disaster to their village and is now begging him to save them, which is what she is doing. Princess Sarah screams that he is not the cause of this. She asks her brother to talk to her, then handcuffs fall on her hands. Brother tells Master Ariak how shameful he is. She will go to prison to think about her behavior. She cries and looks at her brother desperately. Ariak breaks the handcuffs with his bare hands, freeing Sarah from this fate. The chief freezes in shock. Ariak apologizes for interrupting their fun. He asks the elven chieftain, he needs him, right? Then why doesn't he talk to him first? The chief looks at his hand with fear and then asks what he is going to do. Ariak replies that he sees that he has only broken the handcuffs. He steps on the remains of the handcuffs and says that there is no need to handcuff her. The catastrophe itself is in front of him. He is here. He is not running away or hiding. The chief grabs him by the collar and slams him into the ground. All the treats fall off the table. Sarah and Coletta watch in shock. The leader shouts that he is making a hero out of himself, but he was kicked out of the heroes group. He came to their village all ragged. Ariak tells him to stop. The chief jerks sharply. Colette comes up to them. She begins to turn into a dragon from anger. Ariak tells her he is fine, so he asks her to calm down. The chief begins to panic. Colette yells at the chief that he wasted his sister's home-cooked food. It is unforgivable. He doesn't understand what it was, such an aura from the girl, because of which he couldn't even breathe. He feels something more than just fear. He tells himself not to be afraid. They say this guy is talentless. If they catch him, they can stop the extinction of the great forest. The chief orders that these two be captured immediately and thrown into the prison that collects magic. All the elves break into the house. Colette tells Ariake to stop talking and he remains calm and asks what is going on. The princess calls Ariake and Colette to the window and shouts that they need to escape for a while. They jump down. Colette tells Sarah during the flight that she thought she was modest. Sarah happily says that she escapes the forest 3 times a week and becomes an adventurer. Ariake says that the security here is more scattered than he thought. The princess says that now is not the time to chat. She suggests leaving the village quickly, so let them follow her. Then someone attacks, Colette and Ariak disappear. Then the older brother appears and says that it is outrageous, how dare they take away his younger sister Sarah. He says that he also needs to find out what is causing the forest to die. He was thinking of taking the children of the disaster alive, but it is time to leave mercy. He shouts that this great barrier of the Wind King is the strongest wind spell. Its strength is not in the barrier, but rather in the deadly magic that has excellent killing power. He screams at the Ariak disaster to die because this barrier will not stop until it tears them apart. Everything is spinning, nothing is visible, only the materials of the clothes fall on Sarah, she cries in despair, remembering Colette and Ariak. The chief says that so many words, and nothing could be done, at least this should stop the fading. Then someone tells him that he is rejoicing too soon. Ariaki and Colette stand behind him. Sarah is happy to see them. The chief turns and asks how he survived. Ariak explains that it is a false target, skill, which creates a double that acts as a decoy. Colette says that she then came from behind using her master's visibility isolation, skill. Ariak says that last time he used magic to speak, but this time even that didn't work. He was able to get rid of the barrier with a decoy. The chief angrily asks what they are saying. Ariak says he will not resist anymore, he hopes he will be satisfied. The chief is captured. Ariak says he said he could go to jail if he wanted. He thinks they want to capture him alive to learn how to stop the withering. The chief asks if he really wants to live. Everyone is handcuffed. Colette asks the gentleman if everything is okay. He replies that it is too early to talk about it. Ariak asks the chief if the Great Forest will stop dying while he is in prison. Let him think about it carefully. The chief replies that of course it will stop. He says that their village's sealed prison has the ability to repel all magic from the inside, making it impossible to interfere with magic from the outside because it would be a waste for them, who are rumored to be good for nothing. He says he doesn't know how he will do it, even the power of his disaster will be blocked. Ariak agrees and says it will be the same as Hayes. Ariak tells him to think about what is happening in front of him, without looking away, let him judge with his own eyes and ears, and not by what people say. The chief says that they are naive, and then orders them to be taken to prison. They come to a certain egg with patterns. Colette asks if this is a flying prison. Ariak says that the elves' magical technique is truly impressive. He says it looks unusual, but the interior is probably interesting too. He asks to go faster. Colette says she is not in the mood to sit in jail. They are sitting behind the cages. Tsuihou says that the disaster Ariak is imprisoned. It remains to wait a little. The guards are told that they can go down. Colette sees Sarah and asks how she got here. She sees her and starts talking awkwardly and doubtfully. She replies that when they tried to get them out, there was such a commotion, she had no choice what they would think of her if she was the only one who got out of here. Colette understands her and apologizes for dragging her into this. She replies that no, on the contrary, she is glad that she is next to Mr. Ariake. She asks her aggressively how soon she will come to her senses and try to get them out of this prison. Ariak asks them to stop. This prison repels physical attacks too. They ask him how he knows. He replies that he knows how this kind of magic works. He's not sure if Colette is going to attack physically, but it's best not to try yet. It'll be very difficult to sort out later. Colette says that doesn't mean they can't escape. Sarah asks her if she was really planning to do that since it's impossible. Ariake says that it's actually possible. This prison is designed to reflect magic. If that's the case, then you can use the conversion skill to change the principle to absorb magic. He says that this prison has no room to store magic, so it will quickly overflow and collapse. Sarah says she's never heard of it. Colette says that, as expected of a master, she suggests using it quickly then. Ariaki says no, because he planned to stay here for a while. Colette asks why, being here is such stupid honesty. Ariaki confidently replies that time will tell. A week later, the elves see that all the trees are dead. They say it's terrible and that the monster is devouring everything. It happened the day before yesterday when he couldn't get close here because of the rain. The crowd starts talking. If only Ariak were here. The leader hears and asks what they are doing. Let them quickly remove the corpses here. If the rotting continues, let them collect the magical essence. He orders the royal guard to strengthen the barrier against monsters and let everyone get to work. He rides his horse and reflects that the disaster Ariak has been in prison for a week now. But there are no signs of improvement. Apparently the reason is still something else. He needs to start all over again from the beginning. He remembers his coronation, when he, Hayes, was named the new chief. May the spirits bless him. He then vowed to bring even greater prosperity to the great forest, and everyone rejoiced and called him Lord. This has not happened in the 10 years that he has been the head of the elves. On the contrary, he made the forest richer, reducing the amount of logging. He gave more power to the elves, who receive energy from nature. But this year he has suffered so much, the forest is dying faster than in previous eras. Whose leader does not like the forest is no good. He tells himself that this is not true, and that the forest loves him. There must be some other reason. As insignificant as it may seem, he believes it has a big impact. He was asked if he had heard the story of the elven hero, and he asked, what story? He was told that there was one person who was excluded from the hero's party. This interested him. This is what he thought. He had met the hero a few years ago, but he had not met the man named Ariak because he had already separated, so the hero kept talking about some useless and worthless man. Because the hero treated him like that, he takes revenge on him and his entourage with his evil power. Then he thought that this Ariaki was this disaster. He remembers Ariaki's words to him not to look away, to judge with his own eyes and ears, and not by what people say. Sarah told him that Ariak was not a disaster. He suddenly realized something and vigorously rode his horse further. Colette tells the master that a week has passed. He said that time will tell, but a week has passed. Sarah apologizes to Colette. She brings food and says that even while they are here, the forest continues to die. This shows their innocence. Colette tells her that she's fine. She was released the next day. This elf chieftain has a sister complex. Sarah says that her brother Hayes is older than her, so he treated her more like a child than a younger sister. He is strict with himself and others, so he is often misunderstood. He shows love for the forest more than anyone else. She says sadly that while the forest was not dying, it did not wish harm to anyone. Then Ariaki says that everything is fine. They look at him. Ariake says that Hayes has probably already begun to notice now that the illusion is gone. He can see it with his own eyes and realize that he himself created the myth of the disaster as the leader of the elves. Ariake is waiting for only this. Sarah looks at him with admiration and thinks as if Mr. Ariake himself is testing himself, as if he became a god or a spirit and appeared before them. Suddenly there is some noise. Sarah asks what that sound is. What a terrible rumble. Ariak realizes that things are bad. It seems that the worst time has come. The forest is deteriorating faster and faster. Hayes sees a light in the sky and shouts that it is a signal from the village, that something has happened. They ride even faster and harder. They come and see wounded elves and destroyed houses. He doesn't understand what happened. The leader of the squad approaches her and asks if he is okay. She tells him that a mud flow came down from the mountain to the village and swallowed up several houses. He immediately asks if everyone is safe. She replies that they are doing it, but there are not enough people. Everyone is in a panic. He asks where Sarah is. She replies that she hasn't seen her anywhere. He asks if a mudslide has really covered her, and that they should quickly look for her. Some woman pulls him by the hands and says that her child is in the mud. He is still a child, so she asks him to save him. Another old man says that they will definitely save him, because the forest loves elves. Someone approaches them, calling the headman. He says the ground is loose. There could be a second wave, so they need to get out. Hayes looks at him in panic. He keeps thinking while everyone argues that they need to save those under the mud flow first. Another says that they won't be able to help, even if they all participate. Someone shouts that the spirit of the forest is angry. Something like this has never happened before. He begins to think that it is all because of him, because the spirits of the forest do not like him, because he is a bad leader. He remembers Ariake's words to him to look with his own eyes, to think about what is happening now. He keeps getting convinced that it's all because of him. Then, someone calls the headman again. He turns around and sees how all the elves are looking at him expectantly. He remembers that this is all because the spirits of the forest do not like him. He is the headman of this village. He turns his body to the people. He screams that he will not abandon her. First of all, they need to save the residents. It is dangerous, but they must free the houses from the mud. In case of a second wave, the children and the elderly should be evacuated first. He understands that now they need not to turn to the spirits but to act themselves, and then they will definitely find a way out. He searches and finds a small baby who is crying. He picks him up and hugs him tightly. Here he understands that the second wave of mudslides is coming. He is told to save himself. He hugs his child. He ponders the last minutes that the second wave is coming so soon. He needs to calm down and extinguish it with the royal wind barrier. Although he understands that there are too many people nearby, besides, even his magic cannot cope with such a scale. He mentally asks everyone for forgiveness, especially he asks Sarah for forgiveness, imagining her warm image. Here, Ariak asks him if he will give in so easily. He stands nearby, casting a spell, and a huge circle is drawn around them. It summons time stasis, gravity control, impact absorption, knockback generation, all skill synthesis and continuous action. Here they all see that the mud flow is going away. All the elves are watching and shouting that it is a miracle. They joyfully shout that they are saved, they are alive. The woman takes the baby and thanks Hayes for her child. Hayes looks at the mud flow and says that he used a continuous deployment of many skills, and at such a scale, what the hell is he anyway? Then Sarah comes and asks her brother what happened. He runs up and asks if she is okay. She answers that she is okay and sees that he is too. Hayes says he's really glad about that. Sarah looks at him, surprised. He says he'll explain in detail later, but right now they need to clean up this mess as soon as possible. Sarah says she'll help too. Colette tells Ariak that it was cruel to leave her alone like that. She complains that Sarah was so slow that she had to carry her, which is why she was late. Ariak says that it seemed like a lot. Colette says he broke out of jail and ran away so fast that she didn't even realize what was going on. It looks like he's already sorted everything out. He replies that he was just defending himself because a mudslide was coming at him. He wasn't saving anyone. Hayes says that this is not true and that he has certainly saved their village. Now they need to save the villagers from this land and sand. As soon as possible, they will express their gratitude later. Sarah looks at him happily, and Ariak says that he will wait for this. He folds his hands in front of him and smiles. Ariak says that the magic he can use is also limited. How many days will it take them, weak elves, to get rid of this filth? Hayes tells him to shut up, and that they will begin now. Ariak says the buff is activated. Another elf brags that he can lift that boulder so easily. Ariak says he cast the skill on everyone in this village. Ariak says that it's time for him to go now. If he doesn't figure it out quickly, there will be problems. Sarah and Hayes look at him in surprise. Later, they are told that they helped them, the elves, in a difficult moment. They decide to drink to Ariak, their savior. Ariak doesn't like it, but Colette enjoys it. Everyone is discussing that it was cool after all, thanks to Ariak's skills. Their strength increased many times, and there were no casualties. A real miracle. There are no words to express their gratitude. Sarah tells him that she thanks him from the bottom of her heart. He is truly a rare and unique person. She notices Ariak running away and asks where he is going. He replies that he will sit in the corner because he is too exposed here. Hayes asks what kind of elven chieftain he is. If he allows the hero of the savior to sit in the corner of the table, he asks him to return to his seat. Ariak says that at least he can sit on the corner of the table and watch the village boys gossip about him, so he can leave his politeness behind. Here, Hayes slams his fist on the table, which scares everyone. Hayes says through difficulties that there is something he must tell him. Ariak waits. He is still hesitating. Colette tells Ariak that maybe he will listen to the leader of the Proud Elves. Such an opportunity rarely happens. Hayes fails to apologize. Colette irritates him and tells him to say clearly and plainly that he was wrong. Ariak awkwardly asks him to stop. Ariak says that apologizing to a human is quite a feat for an elf, so Hayes shouldn't bother himself. Hayes slams the table even harder and yells at Ariak to forgive him and that he was wrong. Ariak looks on in surprise. The chief says that, not realizing his own wrongness, he blamed others and was cruel. He was self-confident and, having misjudged the situation, almost led his people to destruction. He says that he didn't trust anyone, not even his beloved sister and himself. If only he had better understood what was happening around him, it was his mental weakness that brought them to this. Ariak states that this is not the case. The cause of the landslide was a dangerously large accumulation of magical energy, but the cause was that he, Hayes, paid too much attention to the trees. They don't understand. Ariak says that while he was in captivity, he learned a lot from Sarah. Several years ago, they stopped cutting down trees completely. Hayes says that's true, and that they haven't cut down trees or thinned the forest in years, but he didn't think they'd need to. Ariak says that every tree in the elven forest needs careful maintenance. He says they stopped thinning the trees. There were too many of them, and the magical energy began to accumulate. It is difficult for sunlight to penetrate the tree canopies in such a dense forest. Sarah says that this means that the excess stagnant energy was superimposed on the recent heavy rainfall, and this is the result. Ariak suggests that this rainfall was also caused by magic. Ariak tells Hayes that as a chief he should have understood the importance of tending the forest. He asks why they stopped doing so. Hayes replies that an order was given several years ago to stop cutting down trees. Ariak asks who could have given such an irresponsible order. He replies that this is the hero Bibia. They are surprised. Hayes says that even then this fight with the consequences caused by magic became a real headache for him, and then several warrior travelers passed through their forest. Ariak thinks that Bibia said that how much longer will they do this ancient nonsense? The elves get energy from the trees, so let them stop cutting them down. He then told Hayes that he wouldn't charge much for the advice. He thought that since the hero was talking, he decided to try, but he had his doubts. But indeed, having stopped cutting down trees, they began to feel that their strength was growing. He says he now understands it was only a temporary effect. Colette says the fading had already begun by the time they noticed it. She says that this stupid soldier advised it. Sarah says that she is also to blame for the fact that they could not determine the cause. Hayes says that he was inexperienced and thought that this way they would open a new path. Ariak rubs his face and says that if he had been with them from the beginning, this wouldn't have happened. Even if it was something else, he should have understood. Here he says that the blame for what happened lies with him. He sincerely repents before them. They look at him in surprise. Hayes asks because he was kicked out of the squad, but he apologizes for them. He says that before he thought that only those who were robbed of their pride asked for forgiveness. But there is pride and nobility in his apologies. He is a real sage. He thanks him and says that they will look after the forest again, and both this forest and he are beginning a new life. Sarah, in tears, says that she will open a fan club for them. She asks them to stay in their village. She begs them. Hayes asks what she's talking about since it's time for Ariak to hit the road. Colette tells Sarah that she'll be helping out too. Ariak asks Colette not to hang around. Hayes says that once the situation calms down, he will report it to the government. The actions and words of soldiers serving the state cast a shadow of responsibility on the state itself. It would be good if the state made this clear to its warriors, who do not take it seriously enough. Ariak awkwardly agrees. Hayes proudly says that he will report on his heroism and the treasure as well. Ariak says that it is not necessary. Hayes scolds his sister as much as he can. Sarah turns to Mr. Ariak and almost cries. Ariak says that her courage and determination saved them. Colette agrees, saying that if it weren't for her, they wouldn't have lasted a week in jail. They say that her people can rest easy, because she is next to them, let her lead them further, she is a talented leader. Ariak says that when they meet next, he thinks she will already be a princess, wisely ruling the elves. Sarah thanks him and wishes them a safe journey. They all say goodbye. Ariak and Kalito leave the elf village. In the city of Lakshmi, a girl looks at an ad and reads that they are looking for a warrior for the hero squad. Maybe this is her chance to help these brave heroes. Alicia stretches her arms and says that she enjoys traveling alone for her own pleasure. She looks at Ariak's doll and says that if only Ariak were here it would be best. Fenrir tells her that she tried to tempt her with a trip, but she's traveling alone, which is pretty boring. Alicia looks away and says that then it's a trip of one person and one animal. She asks Alicia if there is any trace of this man here. Alicia replies that her radar is responding. She adds sadly that he has already disappeared, and she senses traces of a greater power, an impersonal power similar to hers. Fenrir says it is a dragon. Alicia asks what it is. Alicia says she thinks they're heading in the right direction. He asks her to move. Elsewhere, Bibia is angry and says that someone must be joking, they are not going to join them at all. He clutches the paper with the announcement. He shouts that they even rented a room in a hotel to interview new members, but not a single person came today. He asks if they recruited the right staff. Delia says they interviewed a few people, but not many. Bibia yells that they were all low-level, useless. He says in an irritated tone that the Kingdom guys said they wouldn't give back the Holy Sword unless he completed this D-rank quest. D-rank is easy, but if they want to take Alicia's place, they'll need a healer of a certain level. Urga says there are rumors about the Holy Sword being confiscated, and frankly, the number of applications. Bibia yells at him not to pick on him, that's not how he makes his flyers. Bibia says the new guy they hired the other day wasn't even good, he compromised with him because he was average. He shouts that he said they don't need men, they should include this in the job description. Someone comes in and awkwardly says he's finished packing. It's Bashuta, he's a porter. Bibia tells him it's a good job, calling him a newbie. Bashuta sadly says that he is a man, maybe he is not suitable to participate. because he said that he does not want there to be another man in their squad. Delia immediately says that they need Bashuta in their home, but in her head she thinks that he is needed for routine work. Urga agrees and thinks that they cannot afford to lose another person, and Bibia is in a bad mood. Bibia says that the last porter was completely useless, so don't worry about it, he's much better than him just because he doesn't talk back. Here he shouts, "Where's Purara? She has been behaving well lately." Just then she comes in and asks someone not to follow her, another asks why, she is alone. Purara comes in, followed by a guy. She shouts that she is not alone, if they want to pick up a girl, let them look elsewhere. Delia asks her where she was. The guy asks if that is her beautiful friend. Bibia sees the boys and asks if they are potential recruits. Purara angrily says that they are not. They see that Bibia is brave. They wonder if this is real. Bibia gets pleasure from such words. He says he is really a great hero. Bibia is brave. They laugh and ask if he is serious. They shout that he, Bibia, is a stupid hero who has had his sacred sword confiscated. He begins to get angry. The guys discuss that he abandoned his comrades in the cursed cave and ran away. This is not good. The great wise princess would have abandoned him. Bibia shouts at the boys that they will die right now. Urga stops him, tells him to stop and not to make scenes with civilians. They suddenly say that Ariak is amazing. The angry Purara asks why Ariak's name appears there. They ask her if she doesn't know that a big attack took place in the city of Medisun the other day. Urga asks if they are talking about the royal knights and adventurers clearing the demon forest. The guy replies that it is just a government fiction. He says that in reality, the royal knights were destroyed by the demon forest monsters and the adventurers surrendered, but then, Ariak appeared. Bibia immediately shouts that it is a lie because he could not resist him. The boys say that they fought Ariaki in that city, they were in the rear, so they hardly saw Ariaki on the front lines. They say that it is a great honor for them to fight alongside Ariak. They never thought that they would meet a mad hero who drove away a real hero. Bibia closes the door in front of them and shouts to get out. He calls them village idiots and that they are making it all up anyway. Delia, Purara, and Urga just look at each other. Purara asks Bibia if she should apologize to Ariaki. Bibia is furious. Delia asks what she is even talking about. Purara says that they only heard about Ariak, and wasn't it because Ariak wasn't there last time that they were almost destroyed in the cursed cave. She thinks that Alicia wasn't the only one who believed in Ariak. She thought that it was Ariak's unique skill. Bibia grabs her by the collar and tells her that she doesn't know what she believed in, but she would never be stupid enough to apologize to Ariak. He orders her to never speak of it again. He throws her against the wall. The guys want to stop him. Bibia asks if they really think it's more profitable to listen to Ariaki's convenient stories and flatter him. If she wants to apologize, then let her go alone. Bibia declares that they will never be able to travel without him. Bashuta asks Purara if she is okay. Purara says not to worry, she won't leave this group. Delia agrees and says that they are all friends. Purara says with a blank look but a smile that they haven't gotten even with them yet. Bashuta doesn't understand. Bibia starts to get angry from the noise and asks if it's really those rednecks again. He thinks that to make it clearer, he needs to hurt them once. He opens the door and sees a girl with a pole. She says that she and the hero haven't seen each other for a long time and she is glad to see him again. Bibia recognizes it and says it's Lorelei. She looks inside and says they're all here because it's been so long. Delia also recognizes her. Urga says that a lot of time has passed. She looks good. She says that she just returned from a long hike. She heard that they were here and came to say hello. Bashuta introduces himself. She asks if he is a new member and apologizes for the delay. She introduces herself and says that her name is Lorelei Canaria, a recovering artist who has been temporarily living with the hero's company. She tells that during a difficult quest against a behemoth, the hero needed an additional restoration mage, so she temporarily joined him. She asks if Ariak isn't here, and the saint isn't here either. Delia explains that they're both away for different reasons, which is why she's looking for someone to take over. Bibia says it doesn't matter if they have a few people less, it won't affect how strong he is or not. The girl says he is her hero. She tells him with shining eyes that she still thinks of him every night, the hero who cut down the mighty enemy hippopotamus with one blow of his sacred sword. It was truly a wonderful sight. Bibia is embarrassed and says that it was so amazing. Lorelei says that it was a wonderful fist job by Sister Delia who knocked out so many ogres in an instant. She is embarrassed too. She talks about Elgar's iron defense, which is not subject to enemy attacks, and she replies that of course it is him. Lorelei also mentions Parara's various magical attacks, and she replies that she has a pretty good sense of magic. Lorelei says that the time spent with them, the heroes, was truly a miracle, and besides greeting them, she would like to say a few words about them. She learned that they are looking for new members. She says that if there are any more openings, she would like to see if they would consider her as a candidate. Bibia immediately shouts that they are recruiting her. He says that they were actually going to choose from 10 candidates, but she was the best choice. She asks if they are sure. For her it is a big honor that she was chosen from dozens. She says she is so happy to be with them again. Bibia says that's what real heroes are made of. Delia agrees and says that it's nothing compared to one failure. Urga tells Parara that she remembers what they did on their way so far. She says she would like to go back to those glorious days. Can she? Bibia says sure, they can. They finish this quest, get the holy sword back, and everything will go back to normal. They shout happily that they are all here, and they will begin. In the forest, Adcock Bibia asks if the point is to kill the wyverns. Bashuto replies that their goal this time is to destroy the wyverns that have taken up residence in the forest lake. Bibia says that they are going so deep into the forest to fight a simple wyvern it's not worth it. He tells us that Lake Edcock is an important place where low-level monsters gather, serving as a hunting ground for new adventurers, so this time the quest is to destroy the wyverns that have become parasites in the hunting grounds. No one listens to him. Lorelei says she burns incense to repel insects, but it only attracts them. Bibia says he will finish the quest as quickly as he can. They freeze. Bibia says there is nothing here. Suddenly the monster comes out from behind them. Bibia says he can easily defeat him, but then the manticore's tail flies towards him. Lorelei warns him that it is poisonous. The tail scratches him. He screams that it is indeed poisonous. Urga screams that it is just a scratch. Parara asks why they can't kill it with one blow. Urga defends. Delia says she did a flip, but he attacks again. Delia says he's too fast. Parara tells her to aim properly. They all start arguing. Lorelei stands in a stupor. The monster attacks the girls again. Lorelei screams at everyone to lie down. She points her staff at the monster and then uses a fireball, causing the monster to die. Bibia is outraged that she took her time, and then orders Lorelei to quickly give him a cure for the poison. She does nothing and says that the heroes must be S-rank adventurers who can even defeat a hippopotamus. The manticore was a C-rank monster, clearly weaker. She says that against just one, it took all the team members to win. She asks them why they are having such a hard time. Lorelei indignantly asks, they only need to fight one single low-level manticore, why are they so tense? Bibia awkwardly replies that they just don't feel so good. She sadly says that this is their first mission in the new lineup. Bibia turns to the other boys and says that this changes everything. They awkwardly and demonstratively agree. Bibia immediately says that they are already better. Bibia turns around and sees Parara walking away. He asks her menacingly where she's going. She gets scared and replies that her stomach hurts. Here, Bibia and Delia push her forward. She screams, asking why she has to go first. Bibia says maybe it's because she just tried to sneak away. Delia shouts that only cowards run away from a battlefield alone. Parara is indignant. Who would say that? She keeps screaming that they decided to use her as bait again. She should have escaped earlier. Urga screams at her to stop ruining her reputation. Lorelei awkwardly turns to Ureshii and asks if he can tell her more about the bait. He panics and replies that there is nothing like that, so he should forget about it. Bashuto tells Lorelei that it's not really anything like that, but then she happily says that if it's nothing like that, then she's happy. Bashuto wonders if she really believed it. The girl tells him that this is what real heroes say. Bashuto asks how she, with such naivety, even made it into the adventurers. Bibia shouts at Parara to move forward already, and she shouts that it hurts. Suddenly they start itching and don't understand what it is. Bibia asks what is wrong. Bashuto says it is possible that the insect repellent has run out, which turns out to be true. He says that it seems that now that there is nothing to scare them away, they attract the attention of blackflies. They suck out magical energy from people like mosquitoes. Moreover, the place of their bite itches very much. Bibia tells him to quickly open the next incense. Bashuto replies that there are none more. Bibia does not understand and starts shouting that in the forest dungeons, insect-repellent incense is a must, so why didn't he take spares with him? Bashuto replies that Bibia himself said that they would quickly clear everything out, so there is no point in taking so much. Bibia shouts that it is the porter's duty to always take a couple of extras with him. The porter shouts that as a newcomer to the team, he has no right to disobey the commander's order. Delia tells Bashuto that he is just making excuses, but Ariak Mihama always took enough things with him, and not once did they encounter a shortage of supplies under his watch. Bashuto asks in shock how this didn't happen. It's just impossible, unheard of. He doesn't believe it. Bibia says that because of Ariak this happened all the time. Bashuto says that the amount of things they can take with them is limited. Slight over, or underweighting, was common on hikes, and he had never heard of a tough porter who didn't have problems with being short of something. Lorelei says thoughtfully that she has never heard of such cool porters either. Ariake turns to her. She says that lack of essential supplies is an inevitable part of long journeys, so the group leader and porter always prepare very carefully for the expedition, because the success of the expedition for the whole group depends partly on it. When everything is ready, the group leader evaluates the quantity and quality of the collected items depending on the condition of the participants and the complexity of the task. Of course, their leader, as an experienced hero, did the same last time. Lorelei asks if they've never had a shortage of supplies. Then why is it this time? Bibia panics, and then blurts out that sometimes, in rare cases, this happens. Lorelei listens to him. He says he figured that some midges were not such a big deal, just a minor nuisance. Lorelei replies with a smile that if that is the case then she is very happy, but now she is a little worried about what is the reason for their poor health. Everyone suddenly falls silent. Porara wants to say something, but Bibia interrupts and shouts that nothing special, she has nothing to worry about. Lorelei searches for something in her pocket, asks her to excuse her, and hands them some insect-repellent incense. She says with a smile that she put some aside for herself to use later for her personal purposes. Bibia says that they don't need it. Urga immediately thanks her. Delia admits that they were no longer bearable. Porara says that it's so good that she's on their team. Bashuto says that she is their savior, he will be more attentive in future. Bibia is indignant. Did they even hear what he said? They laugh and say that, then let the one who is not afraid of small insects go ahead of everyone. Bibia starts to scold, but in the end allows them to take them. Vivera is sitting and doing her own thing. The guys are looking out from the bushes. Bashuto says that here is Vivera. Lorelei says that now they should think of a plan. She notices that the others are going to go like this. Bibia tells her not to be such a coward because Daddy will figure it out in no time. Delia says she will use all her skills on him this time. Porara says the advantage always goes to the one who attacks first. Urga says that they had a little talk before coming here, so everything will be fine. Bibia calls out, and Lorelei and Bashuto look at them in shock. Lorelei tells them to stand still and states that they are doing everything completely wrong. They turn and look at her with displeasure. Lorelei says that one of the rules of any adventurer is to always expect the unexpected. She explains that the discussion of who attacks and in what order is only the basic outline of such sorties. They have not even outlined any plan. They do not know the details of the area, they did not monitor the weather either, and the physical condition of the group members should also be taken into account. There was indeed only one wyvern there, but what if other monsters suddenly showed up? How about castling in case they had to fight a lot more opponents, if she suddenly decided to call her friends? Bibia says that in his experience, if there have been any unexpected moments, they have been minor. Lorelei asks why they decided to ignore the detailed attack plan this time. She says that they always had a well-thought-out strategy before, which they strictly followed. They all ask each other if this is true. Urga says that he does not remember such a thing. Porara agrees. Here, Lorelei says that they have already thought of everything. She states that one of the rules of all adventurers is to learn to use their unique talents correctly, and he will be able to survive. The quest is not a place where it will be easy to perform various maneuvers and show off your talents, so a lot here depends on the correct tactics of the team: attack, defense, support. If you stick to this tactics, you can put on a real show. Delia asks if she is saying that tactics are more important than their own strength. Bibia asks if she is trying to belittle his heroic skills. Lorelei replies that it is not at all, that is just speculation. Lorelei just thought that the reason they were so valued was precisely because of their amazingly precise battle tactics. So why did they decide to act according to the situation now, without following any plan? It was so unusual. Bibia asks if they are valued for their fighting tactics. Porara openly says that this is the first time she has heard of this. Lorelei says she doesn't think so. She asks him to remember the fight with the hippopotamus. Bashuto says even he knows about it. She says the hippopotamus is vulnerable to cold, but when cornered, it can change shape, and with it, its weak points. However, the moment it changed its form, they used auxiliary magic, and then the behemoth's attack characteristics were greatly reduced. It was a real battle with analysis and observation. Bibia thinks back to Ariak, who said that ice attacks weren't working on him and that they needed a different plan. Then Alicia told Ariak that, as mentioned in the book he read, the enemy was delivering different types of attacks in a chaotic manner. Ariaki said that it was she who put up the protective pentagram in time. Delia and Lorelei will go in 12 seconds, Elgar will go after them to attack, he will probably use magic. Bibia starts to get angry that he was the one who fought, and that Ariak Mihama didn't land a single blow, he was simply useless. Here Lorelei remembers and, to Bibia's tension, says that at that time Ariak was in charge of preparing all the expeditions. In addition, it was Ariak Mihama who explained the operation to them, and once they arrived at the scene, throughout the battle he periodically encouraged the group members and gave them advice. She says that Ariak is no longer with them. She asks directly if the fact that Ariak is no longer here has suddenly turned the great hero team into a useless group of people. She asks Bibia if he thought he left because his band sucked. Bibia's face twists in anger. Delia is horrified by her words, and Lorelei asks if she really said all that out loud. Urga asks the trembling Bibia how he is. Bibia raises his head and begins to scream and sob. He slaps the ground. Lorelei tells him that even newbies don't allow themselves to whine in the presence of an enemy. Delia asks Lorelei to stop it already, he can't stand on his feet anymore. Urga tells Bibia to forget about her and that he did well. Here, only Parara laughs out loud because he burst into tears because some girl dragged him through the mud, and now the whole group is cheering him on. She tells him what a worthless hero he is, whining in front of everyone, kneeling, he shouldn't have thrown her into the grotto, so he got what he deserved. He cries even harder. Urga asks Parara how much longer, he asks her to stop. Delia calls her a loser and tells her to stop. Parara asks if she is really a loser, let them look at themselves, they shouldn't have abandoned her. Urga asks how long she will remember this. Delia says that she always irritated her. Bashuto shouts that he is fed up because it is impossible to work with them. He sends everyone away and says that he is going home, let them do what they want, he doesn't care about it. He says that he won't waste a minute on their worthless group. Delia and Urga are left in shock. Urga says that if he leaves, rumors will start again. Delia says that she will go after him. Lorelei asks if they will break up again in the middle of a mission. Urga yells that they are busy. Delia tells her to be quiet. Lorelei looks at Parara, who says that they will have to use the hero as bait. Lorelei turns to Bibia and hopefully asks if he will defeat Wyvern. Bibia continues to cry. Lorelei grabs him by the collar and screams at him to pull himself together. He, snotty and tearful, tells her to apologize first. Lorelei stands up and says she gives up, she can't believe how selfish each of them is. She says that this group is not worthy of being called a hero's group. Here even Parara and Urga turn to the terrible screams. Bibia shouts not to look at him like that, he is a hero, he will still remember them, so let them just try to laugh at him. He takes out his sword and shouts that anyone who mocks his group, he will kill them all. Then everything starts to glow. Parara shouts that he is using the final sentence. Lorelei asks in horror what this is. Urga screams that this is the hero's ultimate ability, which requires half of his mana reserves to use. Even without buffs, this blow will wipe out everything around, including wyverns and them. Lorelei screams that this forest is a valuable resource for their kingdom. If he does this, then a dragon flies in. Lorelei panics and says that the wyvern is right above them, let them stop Lord Bibia and get ready. Parara screams that they will be hurt. Urga can't believe it. Urga shouts that they are running away. Parara supports him. Lorelei looks at them in shock while Bibia calls out the final verdict. She doesn't understand at all how this can be called a hero's group. A huge explosion happens. In the end, all 6 of them are sitting behind bars. Bibia keeps shouting to let him out. Is this how to treat a hero? The guards tell him to be quiet, calling him a criminal. Bibia keeps shouting that they were asked to get rid of the wyvern. They not only didn't thank them but threw them behind bars. The guards say that the lake in Edcock Forest was the kingdom's most important resource, and they destroyed it to defeat a single wyvern. He says that travelers pass through those places every day. It's a miracle that there were no victims, otherwise they would have been tried for murder. He says that he heard that he was constantly abandoning his comrades. Let him think about his actions while he awaits trial. Then Lorelei stands up and says that she stopped him. The guards don't understand. Lorelei says that, firstly, she wants to state that she has nothing to do with the destruction of the forest, and in general, she was trying to minimize the damage that this hero wanted to cause. She says that if it weren't for her sacrifice, the situation would have been much worse. Bibia calls her a rat because she wants to leave. Straka checks the documents and says that she is not listed as a member of the group. Bibia asks to wait and says that she only arrived today, he has not yet managed to register her. Lorelei says that she does not know them at all. She screams that they should be ashamed because they can't abandon their comrades to save their own lives. Everyone looks at her in shock. At this point, Parara makes puppy dog eyes and says that she also risked her life to stop the hero. Delia joins in and says that he was too strong, all she could do was reduce the damage. Urga hugs Bashuto and says that they tried too. Bibia doesn't understand and gets angry what came over them. The guards ask if they all suffered because they tried to stop the hero, which means he should be the only one in prison. Everyone answers at once that everything is correct. Bibia is shaking. The guards say that it is clear to him that, given the circumstances, only the hero should be held responsible for what happened. Delia tells Bibia to just submit. Urga says they promise to wait for him to come out. Parara tells him to think about his behavior. Bashuto says goodbye calmly. Lorelei tells him to see him later. Bibia shouts after them that he will not forget them. Then someone asks him why he was making so much noise. He heard them on the other side of the door. The guard asks for forgiveness and says that he was supposed to meet him. Bibia becomes afraid and asks if this is Chancellor Verdok. Verdok says that he is pleased to meet the hero's party, even if not under the most favorable circumstances. The girls are scared and don't understand what he's doing there. Verdok says he just had some business nearby and apparently their imprisonment was a big mistake. He orders the guard to release them immediately. The guard says that the investigation is not over yet, let him at least leave the hero. Verdok asks menacingly, did he not hear him? Let him release them immediately. The guards obey and let them out. They go out. Verdok turns to Bibia, the hero chosen by the sacred sword. He says that he would like to discuss something with him. Bibia is frightened. Verdok says he would like to be alone. He asks if he would join him for dinner. He replies that he would be happy to, as the city is famous for its cuisine. Verdok laughs and agrees with him, saying that what's more, he has prepared a banquet for their group at the royal palace. Meanwhile, Ariak and company have arrived in the city of Alden. Colette is walking around and shouting how beautiful it is. Suddenly, Araki is doused with water, which makes Colette more frightened and twitchy than the master himself. The elderly grandmother asks him for forgiveness. She says that she was watering the flowers and got a little carried away. He replies that it's okay. Colette says it sucks. Ariak Mihama says she needs to dry off quickly. He wipes his face with a towel. He says they just arrived and this is a bad sign for them. He has a bad feeling. He hopes nothing happened to Bibia. Colette says that walking along the clean streets decorated with beautiful flowers, she cannot find a place for herself. Ariak Mihama says it's too clean. Kole asks if that's a bad thing. Ariak Mihama says, not always. He wonders where they put the trash. Ariak Mihama notices that someone is following them. He is distracted by Coletta, who says that there are a lot of people somewhere. He says that it looks like they are meeting someone. The crowd runs right over them, shouting that Lord Henry has arrived. Colette shouts that they are being carried away in the stream of people. Ariak Mihama somehow gets out of the crowd. A certain aristocrat on horseback looks at him and asks what they have here. Are they really travelers? He asks what it was that attracted the attention of Heinrich Gross himself. Ariak Mihama says they didn't do it on purpose. This aristocrat shouts that he has no time to bother with commoners. He asks if they have come to their wonderful city to listen to his speech. How noble of them. Today he will speak about new laws in the square. He speaks of a beautiful law to maintain the beauty of this city. Ariak Mihama looks at him emotionlessly. Heinrich looks into his face and asks if they have never met before, or if he is imagining it. Ariak Mihama modestly covers his face. Henry addresses the citizens and tells them to listen carefully to his speech. The evil Colette asks who he is. Ariak Mihama asks with a smirk, why don't they actually listen to what this new law is? Henry addresses his dear citizens. He wants to express his sincere gratitude to them. He shouts that they worked tirelessly for the good of their city. He is proud to have such outcast subordinates. The crowd of girls keeps shouting that Lord Henry speaks from the heart. They admire him and say that he is incredible. Colette complains that the crowd is too noisy. Ariak Mihama says what else to expect from young ladies in the company of a handsome lord. Colette says she would gladly fry him until crisp. Ariak Mihama suggests she do without it. Colette says she would never lay eyes on some lord when she has a master by her side. Ariak Mihama doesn't hear and says that he seems to be done with the warm-up. Heinrich shouts that their wonderful city is under threat, tax evaders who prevent the state from properly caring for them. He shouts that the most dangerous of them are the beastmen. With their inhuman strength and bestial nature, it costs them nothing to ignore their laws and principles, but let them not be afraid, for he will protect them from all dishonorable deeds. He shouts that they will clean out their slums. He declares persecution of every beastman who does not pay. The crowd shouts that they will not let them do whatever they want. They ask God to bless Lord Henry and save them from the evil ones. Ariak Mihama says that he senses an unhealthy attitude towards beastmen in this city. If he had a catwife, he would be beside himself with anger. The nobleman says that he would now like to hear objections from the city's inhabitants. The guard announces the first representative from the Seixta district. Let her step forward. The grandmother awkwardly says that recently they have had more frequent cases of theft and asks for his help. The guards say that the district mayor should deal with such problems himself. The grandmother says that there are too many cases of theft. The guards do not calm down. How dare she ask His Majesty about this? Henry intervenes and says that he only wants the best for his subjects. There are no minor problems. The crowd says that he is so noble and generous. Colette calls him an unfortunate poser. Ariak Mihama says that it seems that he has nothing else to gain the people's trust with except a show. Heinrich turns to the district chief and says that there are many beastmen living in their territory. Isn't it obvious who the thief is? He looks at them with greedy eyes and says that these damned beastmen do whatever they want, so they have to get rid of them. He answers that Seixta is an industrial area. They need their strength for work. Then the aristocrat takes him by the shoulders and asks if he really wants to profit from the labor of criminals. He answers in a panic that no, and that is not what he meant. Henry says that this means they will create a city that will not rely on thieves for labor, by destroying them once and for all. The crowd shouts that he is right. Let them get out of here. The district chief squeezes the aristocrat's hand, agrees with his order and says that they will get rid of the threat together. Ariak Mihama thinks that even those who disagree with his law are forced to obey. He tells Colette that the situation smells hot. The guard tells the next guildmaster, Alden, to go ahead. The old man obeys and says that the adventurer killer has appeared again. 10 people have already died at his hands this month. The crowd, in horror, begins to make noise and discuss. Colette looks around and also in fear speaks about the killer of adventurers. A man asks if she is also an adventurer, then she should be careful. He says that, as you can guess, she is one of the killer's targets. No one knows who the killer really is, but he is extremely dangerous. Ariak Mihama says that it doesn't sound good. At this time, Heinrich says that his last attack was over a year ago in the Temple of Purgatory. He shouts that he tried to bring him to justice, but he proved elusive. He promises that he will soon be finished. The aristocrat adds that even if he is hiding among people, he will find him and put him behind bars. Ariak Mihama looks and says that something is wrong. Colette asks what is wrong. Then, the aristocrat notices Ariake's gaze. He says that they are the same pair of adventurers he met earlier. He tells them not to be shy, to cheer along with the crowd in his honor. The guard tells the nobleman about Ariake, after which he begins to laugh and shout that he is the Ariak Mihama who was kicked out of the hero's party. Here the crowd moves away from them and makes it so that they are now in the center. They laugh, call him useless. The aristocrat says that there is no need to be rude. Former members of the heroes group often visit them. Why not give them a tour of the city? The crowd cheers and admires him again, saying that he shows mercy even to the ragamuffins. Colette shouts that he and the master are doing well as they are. Ariak Mihama tells Colette that if it's his order, they shouldn't disobey. He also wonders where he takes the city's garbage. The aristocrat asks if this is not a beautiful monument, created by a famous sculptor, fits perfectly into the city's exterior. He asks them what they say. He keeps walking and saying that their city is truly great. Colette says that it is hard to argue with that, but the crowd of onlookers behind him is annoying. The aristocrat tells them not to pay attention. This happens when he is a member of the nobility, and he is the most famous of them all. As they walk, Ariak Mihama notices the homeless people on the street and then looks at Heinrich, who extends her hand to Colette, saying there is a small step here. Ariak Mihama talks about his sword. The nobleman asks what happened to it. Ariak Mihama says that it looks pretty menacing for a man with a lot of guards. The guards say how rude this is, since Master Heinrich is an outstanding swordsman. Heinrich says that these are just the words of a commoner. Ariak Mihama holds out his hand, asking to see. Well, he says he is right. No sword can compare in greatness. Heinrich, in a panic, screams at him to take his hands away. There is silence. Heinrich says that he cannot allow just anyone to touch the weapon. Ariak Mihama asks for forgiveness. Ariak Mihama says that he wanted to ask him something. There are practically no beastmen in the city. Are they really guilty of crimes? Henry replies that the answer is obvious. The beastmen are beggars who know nothing but crime, so it is their civic duty to rid the city of this scum. He says with a smile that it is not so important. Now he is only worried about the lovely young lady. Her beauty eclipses all the princesses he has seen. Colette wants to say that she is a dragon, but Ariak compliments her by saying that she loves dragons very much. Colette tells the aristocrat that he has excellent taste for a man. He laughs and says that she is wasting her time with a misunderstanding next to her. He asks her why she doesn't leave him and stay with him, because it is the greatest honor on earth. Colette laughs politely at first, and then asks why he can't close his mitten. The aristocrat is shocked by such an answer. Colette says that her master, Ariak Mihama, is hundreds of thousands of times better than a tyrant like him, because his ceiling is simple-minded youngsters. She says that he has nothing to offer except empty words and a pretty face. People like him only feed their egos, proving to the world that they have a big sword and not a toothpick. Henry, furious, asks what this man has that he doesn't. Colette replies that if he doesn't know, then he only proves she's right. Ariak Mihama tells her not to provoke him. Colette replies that she couldn't help herself after his words about him. The aristocrat wants to shout, but notices a homeless man next to him. He sharply shouts that this is an abomination. The guards turn to the homeless man. He pushes him and says that here comes Lord Henry, how dare he stand in his way. He apologizes and says that he did not know that the Lord would be here. Colette shouts at the aristocrat that he is overdoing it. He replies that they cannot be given a break. His life is in his hands now. He states that this is the right of the nobility, because it is impressive. Colette becomes even more angry. He looks and says that apparently she still doesn't understand. After that, he orders the guards to get rid of him. The homeless man immediately runs away, and the aristocrat says that he ran away like a real cockroach. At this time, Ariak Mihama used speed increase on the homeless man. Suddenly, Heinrich remembers something and says that he had completely forgotten about the public execution of the beastmen. He looks at Colette and offers to watch with her. He came up with such an original way of dealing with these criminals. He is sure that then she will understand everything. After a while, cat girls are hung on the wall with their hands up. The guards beat one, the other calls him brother. The second guard tells the girl that she was not given a chance to speak. Colette yells at them to stop. Heinrich tells her not to worry because they won't die that easily. Ariake remains silent, and Colette shouts that this is terrible, they are just children, so let them go. The noble laughs and says that they are just objects of his law. He says that the violators must be punished, otherwise they will breed like rats. The beastmen are barely breathing. The aristocrat approaches them and says that he will show them what awaits their kind. He pulls one by the ear. This beastman insults the aristocrats. Heinrich immediately kicks him in the stomach. He gives the order to stone them. Colette asks if he will kill them for protesting. The guards obey and direct stones at them, but they do not reach the beastmen because there is some kind of barrier in front of them. The stones just fall. Heinrich turns to Ariake in shock and anger and sees that he is casting a spell. He shouts that he did something. How dare a stupid commoner? Ariak Mihama says that since he is stupid, in his words, then why is he shouting so much? Something clicks. The aristocrat shouts that he went against him, the Lord, to protect these filthy animals. Has he really forgotten his place altogether? Ariake approaches him and says that there is only one animal here, and that its face is twisted with anger. It is standing right in front of him. The aristocrat says he is a boor and orders the guards to take him. The guards grab Ariake by the arms from both sides. The aristocrat shouts that he is sentencing him to death, but first they will finish with the animals, pointing his finger at him. He screams that now that he is tied hand and foot, he should watch as his precious little animals are killed. Colette wants to say something to the master, but Ariake tells her to stay calm because they don't need their help anymore. Here, the man who was swinging a club at them suddenly falls down in pain, which horrifies the aristocrat. He does not understand what it was. Barrier magic with a backlash strong enough to knock down a horse. There is only one person capable of such a thing. Then Alicia comes and asks what is to be understood by this, turning to Sir Henry. The aristocrat recognizes the great saint Alicia Lungabrook. Why is she here? Alicia asks how to understand this and demands an answer from him. The aristocrat is shaking and does not understand what she is doing here. The guards also weaken and shout that it is really her. The guard bows her head before her. Alicia looks into Ariaki's eyes. He does not look away and looks just as sternly and competently. Alicia says there is no need to hold him, so she gives the order to release him immediately. Henry begins to ask if this is really the saint herself, such an honor to finally meet her, according to him. He extends his hand and says that execution is not the place for such a refined person. Why shouldn't they wait for her in his? She points her pole at him sharply, making him flinch. She says she was told he was agitating people against the beastmen, their faith against discrimination. He asks what she is talking about. She said nothing of the sort. Alicia states that the doctrine of brigatism categorically forbids such radical actions. She says that he is denigrating the faith with his actions. He says with a trembling voice that the church sent her this way, but now is not the best time and place for judgment. He sees a crowd of people gathering. They are making noise and discussing whether she has business with Lord Henry. The woman next to them says that he is behaving strangely. Henry shouts that this is not discrimination. He is punishing criminals this way. The church has no right to condemn him for bringing order to his own city. Alicia asks him if she should consider this as an official response from the church. He gets scared. Alicia says that she has studied the essence of the matter. She reports that he increased taxes on the beastmen and persecuted them, and those who opposed his word. She points to the beastmen and says that he punished them far more harshly than was appropriate for their actions. What is that if not discrimination? She would say that it is all pretty obvious. She points to him and says that by the power given to her by the church, she, Saint Alicia, officially announces Lord Henry's abdication from the church. The crowd is shocked. What other renunciation? One asks if he heard wrong. Another shouts that it cannot be. How can this doom Lord Henry? The third confirms, saying that the great matchmaker said so. Colette says that people are not happy with her decision. Ariak says that the local religion is also the main law. One can say that all the people here are believers, and for them the word of the church is paramount. If he is cut off from the church, he will lose all his power. The aristocrat shakes with anger and then says that he takes his words back. Alicia looks at him haughtily. The nobleman says that he was just about to let the beastmen go. They hug each other. Alicia smiles. Alicia says it's good that she came in time. She casts a spell that all their wounds heal and disappear. Alicia smiles and says that everything will be fine and that they will feel better soon. The two thank her with tears in their eyes. Alicia asks Lord Henry where he is going anyway and how to apologize. He turns and asks if he should apologize. Alicia says that if he refuses to repent of his sins, she will punish him. Heinrich, through force and trembling, tells the beastman that he is sorry. Alicia tells him to now apologize to Ariak. The aristocrat is horrified, and Ariak Mihama himself doesn't understand why. Alicia asks if he didn't know that killing the beastmen would have led to immediate renunciation, but thanks to Ariak they remained alive, and he miraculously escaped this fate. Alicia tells him that he should fall at his feet, and she asks for a simple apology for the way he treated her. The aristocrat doesn't understand what came over her. Alicia looks at him in rage that he immediately asks for forgiveness. Alicia says that it's better this way. Ariak Mihama tells the nobleman that since he repents, he should not behave like that again. The crowd watches them and says that Lord Henry bowed his head to the worthless Ariak. They don't understand what happened there. He even asked the beastmen for forgiveness. Heinrich shakes, clutches his sword, and says that he hates. Heinrich says he's leaving and yells for everyone to get out of the way. Colette exhales with pleasure and says it's a great feeling. Alicia tells Ariak with beautiful eyes and red cheeks that they haven't seen each other for a long time. Ariak Mihama agrees with her. He smiles and says he's glad she's okay. She blushes even more, her insides clenching. She panics thinking that she hasn't seen him for almost a month. It's good that she followed him. She thinks that he looks even more innocent than the last time they met. He must have wasted no time. Colette doesn't understand who this is at all. Colette looks at her with interest. Alicia sees her, turns to Ariak and asks who this young lady is next to him. Colette asks to introduce herself. She says her name is Colette Dubroisis. Alicia sees her and thinks how cute she is. She panics, thinking that she left him for literally a second, and he is already in a group with a girl. Why did she underestimate his charm so much? She looks and thinks that her smile is touching. What a fragile and sensitive girl, so what should she do? She walked half the country to become a third wheel. Colette thinks to herself, what kind of gorgeous young lady is this? She thinks that with such a face one could charm a dragon, and the air around her seems to shine. She immediately thinks that the master mentioned some former partner. Could it really be her, and what should she do? Ariake asks Alicia why she is alone. Where are the others? She answers that she left Bibia's group. Ariake says what a coincidence that the church sent her here. She panics and says that she was actually just following him, but then she really wants to work here. She hides her gaze and says that since she left the heroes group, she thought she would join his group. Ariake, after thinking about it, says that it is clear to him, and then asks Colette what she thinks. She keeps thinking, is he testing her? She won't travel with a rival, but if she refuses, Ariak might kick her out for jealousy. Alicia is also panicking and wondering if the girl's opinion really matters to him, if they are really dating. She tells herself to be calm because it is still unknown. Colette starts to speak. Alicia realizes that this is her chance to make the first move. Alicia says with a smile that she is known as a great saint and is skilled in healing and resurrection magic. Alicia smiles awkwardly and says that she is definitely a godsend for their group. She keeps thinking that she feels like she is selling out. Colette takes her hands and shouts that it's so cool, because she said that she can not only heal, but also resurrect. People rarely have such a gift. It's no wonder that she is considered a saint. Alicia looks and thinks, she is kind, here it is, the power of sweet girls. Now she is ashamed of her words. Colette stands and thinks that she has lost the fight. She starts to think clearly and thinks that people can't succeed in both healing and resurrection at the same time, so she sees. If such a strong healer joins the group, she won't have a chance. She is tormented. What should she do? She does not want to leave the master. Someone needs to parry and prove her usefulness in the group. Colette shows her tail and says that she is the daughter of the Dragon King. She can't heal, but she fights well, and she can also breathe fire. She thinks to herself, what is she talking about? Why did she say that? People can't breathe fire. Her only talent is agility in battle. She's no good for anything else. She's going to cry now. Alicia says it's incredible. She'd like to see her. She asks if she's really from the dragon race. It's a great honor to be in a group with her. Colette happily thinks that she considers her worthy. Ariak Mihama will not throw her out. She tells Alicia that she will be so happy if they start traveling as equals. Alicia asks in surprise if she can really go with them. They rejoice together. What happiness, what relief. Colette thinks that now she will definitely stay in the group. Alicia exhales that she was accepted. Both think that they will surely win the heart of Master Ariak. Ariak Mihama thinks that they are both stubborn. He didn't think that they would come to an agreement. He says that it seems that it was in vain. He won't worry about them. Then the beastmen come and address Alicia and Eric. They bow and say that they owe them their lives and then thank them. They ask how they can thank them. One introduces himself. His name is Hugh. He is from the dog-eared tribe, and this is his sister Anna. The girl bows. Ariak Mihama says to thank not him, but the saint. Anna says that he saved them from the stones. She is surprised. Alicia tells Ariak that it was only thanks to him that she arrived on time. Ariak Mihama doesn't know at all. Colette says that of course they owe the saint too. Huey says with a smile that he risked his head to oppose Henry's will. He is their hero. They will never forget his kindness. Ariak Mihama agrees and smiles. He says he will take half of their thanks and Alicia will take the other half. Alicia asks him not to bother her. Ariake asks what they are going to do. Huey replies that they live in wandering. To be honest, now he is even more afraid of Henry. Anna says that although we have friends who are ready to help, we must keep everything a secret from the Lord. Hugh says that he will not so easily leave his beloved city in the clutches of a tyrant. Alicia says that Lord Henry had only recently received his title from his father, which is why the church took so long to respond to his atrocities. She tells them not to worry. She will personally make sure that punishment catches up with him. Moreover, now she is on the church's radar. Huey asks if he will be ordered not to abuse his power. Anna is happy and says that they can continue traveling. Huey says with a sad smile that the adventurer's killer can't be ignored, but at least Henry's oppression has been lifted. Colette calls it a happy ending. Ariake thinks it's good to know that the city is under the church's care, but the look on Heinrich's face worries him. Ariake also saw his hand on the swords. He turns to Huey and Anna and says that they need to talk. At this time, Henry runs headlong, hitting his head, screaming and cursing Ariake. He keeps on shouting and screaming, who gave him the right to behave like this with him, the Lord. He even stopped the stones. The aristocrat believes that the very existence of beastmen is a sin. What's wrong if he cleanses the world of them? She says that even the great saint has taken his side. He remembers his renunciation and becomes furious. The guards stand at the door and hear all the cries that they will regret it and that they will all pay. They will hang all their heads over the fireplace. He calms down, breathes heavily, and thinks that the church will watch his every sneeze. He must exterminate this rabble. Until then, he will show them all. He raises his sword, laughs, and says that it is true. Even if he loses, he has it, the one that they gave him. Someone opens the door with a creak. He aggressively asks who is there. Heinrich says that he thought about how to deal with the killer of travelers, but first, they need to inspect the Temple of Purification for suspicious persons. The guard gives him some document and says that the guilds have compiled a list of the groups that have arrived as he requested. He opens the document and smiles slyly, after which he orders the knights to be prepared. They will leave at dawn. He reads the names 6 Huey and Anna, and here they are, caught. Luck is still on his side in his opinion. At the Temple of Purification, the guard tells Henry that no suspicious persons have been spotted at the entrance to the temple. Henry himself notices Anna and Huey among the crowd, after which they are ordered to go inside. Inside, the beastmen are talking about whether it is safe to stay here. There is a maniac operating in the area after all. Another one says that, of course, because of him, the prices for prey have skyrocketed. One tells the other not to worry so much about the city Luneta. The second suggests finishing it quickly. Then the maniac stabs the first one with his sword. He thrusts the sword deeper and asks what it's like to die from an urban legend. The other one screams that he's not a monster, he's a traveler killer. He plunges his sword into the second's leg and says that no one will help him, his people will take care of it, no one will dare to interrupt them. He hits the maniac, who takes off his hood and then is horrified. It is Henry who kills and says that he saw his face. Now he definitely won't live. He finally kills the beastman and laughs out loud, getting great pleasure from it. He calls him trash and shouts that everything is true. He is the killer, let him rejoice. The death of even such a beastman is not in vain, for with each kill his sword becomes stronger. He screams that he will kill hundreds, no, thousands, more to become stronger. This was a good warm-up, and now the main course, he needs to kill the twins. At this time, Huey and Anna are walking through the temple. The girl says that today is kind of creepy. Huey tells her to take a break, and he will scout the way. Henry stands behind the wall and thinks that here is his chance to get rid of the little one while her brother is gone. Henry quietly leaves and plans to kill his brother in front of her lifeless body. No one dares to make a fool of him. He swings his sword and shouts that this is their punishment, to make his sword drunk. Anna turns around in fear. At this time, her brother appears from behind and shouts to take his hands off his sister, after which he punches him in the face. Henry falls down with a bloody nose. Huey clenches his fist and says that he finally crawled out. Henry asks if he really sneaked up on him. Colette takes off her hat with ear flaps and says that it was actually her in disguise, so it's no wonder he didn't notice Anne behind him. Ariaki comes out and says that it went surprisingly smoothly. He was worried for nothing. Alicia says that Colette is great. She is cute even in disguise. Henry is horrified. Anna asks if he now understands how badly he's screwed. Huey tells him to give up because Lord Ariak Mihama can see right through him. Ariak Mihama says that he mentioned the maniac yesterday, that he promises that they will detain him even if he hides among the adventurers. He says that he said that the maniac among the adventurers, the killer could have been anyone, but he emphasized this. It is unusual for someone of his plight to do something with his own hands. After all, during the year of his reign there were no results in the search. Now it is clear why. Ariak Mihama says that he pretended to be looking for a maniac, but he was the killer. Heinrich shouts that this does not prove anything. Ariak Mihama says they have a witness. The two beastmen he killed come out unharmed and shout that he saw everything. He is definitely the adventurer killer. Alicia asks them if it was Lord Henry who killed them both. Henry doesn't understand what's going on. Alicia explains that she revived them. What more proof is needed? Colette says that his sword has a terrible aura. With each kill it becomes more sinister. She says it wasn't so noticeable in the sheath. Ariak Mihama says it looks like it's enchanted. Heinrich screams, how dare they treat him like that? Ariak Mihama says that they had to use bait to lure him into the trap. Huey says that Lord Ariak Mihama came up with a plan using them as bait. Alicia says that they just lost sight of Lord Henry on the way here and were unable to save the people from trouble. She tells her that, in the end, she was the one who revived them. Alicia turns to Heinrich, calling him an adventurer killer. He doesn't calm down and asks what they are saying. He has nothing to do with it. Alicia says that she has set up a barrier. No one will get out of here. She says that no excuse will save Lord Henry for murder, civil rights violations, bribery, blackmail, and other crimes. She tells him he is a disgrace to the nobility. She will take everything from him. Silence falls. Henry trembles. Ariak Mihama tells the two to drag him out. They do so. Heinrich trembles and twitches. Colette notices his sword. Henry says they will all pay him. One asks what he is mumbling. Ariak Mihama notices Henry's unhealthy face. Henry says he will tear everyone to pieces. Ariak Mihama shouts for everyone to lie down on the ground. The sword begins to rise. Colette flies back. Everyone else falls to the ground. Henry stands with a sword that has a wild power. Alicia screams that he has a demonic sword. Ariak Mihama says that things are bad, they all have to be careful. Heinrich says that he will show them the true power of his sword. Henry shouts for everyone to see his demonic sword, which has swallowed countless souls. He screams that they laughed at him, and now he will feed them to his sword. Ariak Mihama shouts at him to stop, warning him that it is not a sword, but a monster. Henry doesn't understand anything. A huge monster enters Henry. Huge tentacles envelop Henry's body. Colette asks what kind of horror is going on here. Ariak Mihama says that a monster that took the form of a sword and fed on souls. He only knows one monster that can do that. He says it's a mimic. A huge, one-eyed monster looks at them. It starts vibrating. Colette dodges the attack and screams that he throws rocks with his tentacles. The monster makes scary sounds. Colette notices and says that he is getting bigger. Alicia thinks that his attacks are very chaotic. She realizes that she and Ariak will hardly be able to protect everyone. If he speeds up, they are in big trouble. Anna asks if mimics aren't low-level monsters. Ariaki says they don't have to be in chest form, and this one ate so many souls that he reached the form of a devil mimic. He says that these are already SSS class monsters or catastrophe level monsters. The monster attacks again. Ariak Mihama protects Anna by covering her head. The rocks hit the beastmen. Colette says it was a huge blast wave. Everyone must have lost consciousness. Alicia watches from behind the wall and thinks that he is still moving uncertainly. Maybe he hasn't managed to completely absorb Henry, so there is still time. Ariaki asks the Beastman if he can move. He says he can, and thanks Ariaki for protecting him. Huey says they should run while they still can. Good thing they haven't gone too deep. Araki agrees and tells them to leave. He tells Alicia and Colette to prepare for battle. Huey is surprised and asks if they really want to hold him off with just the three of them. Ariaki laughs and says that they won't just hold him off, they will defeat him. He will support his group. Alicia says that with Ariak's power they will not lose. Colette agrees and says that it is so. She will show what a Dragonborn is capable of. Arake says not to go too far apart, otherwise they won't get their buff. Colette says that she's not going to leave him. Alicia joins in. Anna looks and says she will help the others leave. She averts her gaze and says she can't do more than that, especially against that thing. Ariake places a hand on her shoulder and says that she was able to instantly assess the situation, which puts her head above most adventurers. He says he will revive the others, so he is counting on them. Ariake increases psychic power. Anna's arms and chest are bandaged. Alicia sees and says that there is no more hiding. Colette says that it looks like the monster has digested. The beastmen leave and wish them luck. The monster continues to laugh, and Heinrich's voice can be heard inside it, shouting to Ariaki that he will kill him. A strong wind from the monster begins. Ariake tells them to stay in a group. The buffs will wear off if they go too far. They respond that they understand. He casts invulnerability, speed boost, and evasion boost on Colette. He tells her that the spells are powerful but short-lived, so she shouldn't overdo it. She hit him and immediately retreated. Colette says she doesn't understand anything, but listens to him. He tells Alicia that the buffs on Colette will last for 45 seconds. After that, he should throw a barrier on her. She says that she understands, so in 44 seconds there will be a barrier. Colette flies straight to the monster with a fist, hits him from below and smugly asks how he is. Does it hurt? Now let him take his leave. Then the monster suddenly tries to grab her with its mouth, but she quickly bows away. She asks if it has grown a mouth where it was hit. She says that punches make this monster stronger. Alicia says that it doesn't sound fair. Ariake tells Colette to keep up the pace. Colette obeys and continues to attack. Ariake says that maybe this mouth will disappear in time. Alicia asks if he means that it will heal. Ariak Mihama says that they will watch. Colette continues to attack and yells at the monster to close its mouth. Ariak tells her to remember that it's just a mimic. Colette keeps dodging the monster and says that it can't reach her. She laughs and says that it's all thanks to the master's buff. Is that really all this monster can do? The monster suddenly changes its field of vision and looks at Ariak. Colette realizes that it has changed its target and shouts to the master. Here they are protected by a barrier. Ariak Mihama says that time is up, just in time. He calls Yuusha. Yuusha uses holy protection and asks Ariak for forgiveness and tells him to use the buffs on himself. Ariak says he expected it to target him, so he saves some magic. She asks what if he gets hurt. Ariak says it's unlikely, certainly not with her support. He tells Yuusha that she has saved the heroes group many times, so he is in no danger with her around. She doesn't answer. Ariak notices that she is shaking and calls her name. Yuusha thinks that even in the heat of battle he is so sweet, this is what she worked so hard for. Yuusha says she can't concentrate when he looks at her like that. He apologizes and wonders to himself if he's upset her. Colette lands next to them. Ariak says she did a great job. Enormous tentacles suddenly envelop them. Ariak says they have a few seconds while the barrier holds. He asks to hear about its weaknesses. They wonder if he's figured them out yet. Colette says he's only getting stronger with every hit. Ariak says that he actually had a hard time and it's injured. All they see is a trick. Colette doesn't understand. Ariak explains that the tentacles around the injured area are slower. It looks menacing, yes, but only at first. It convinced them that there was a mouth there, and it grew stronger when, in fact, it was distracting them so it could recover. In other words, it was just healing, deception being the mimic's specialty. Colette says she understands now. Yuusha says that even if they know its tricks, it still regenerates very quickly. She says that immediately after taking damage, it created a mouth, and after 10 seconds, it was completely healed. Ariak says that this is the key to its weakness. He says that despite her remarkable healing skills, why does she create a mouth where the wound was? Colette says it's because she looks menacing. Ariak wonders if she was even listening to him. Yuusha says that if you hit the same place twice, it won't regenerate. Ariak says it's worth a try. Ariak, Yuusha, and Colette were standing inside the transparent barrier. Ariak said that they had to hit Mimic before it recovered. That was the only chance of success. That meant they had to use multi-strike. Ariak added that the damage from the blow would not increase, but there would be more blows. He decided to continue to hit until the energy ran out. Colette happily shouted that it was good. Yuusha responded that there was nothing rosy about killing a cis-class monster. The boys heard a cracking sound around them. Yuusha said that the barrier couldn't hold up and they were running out of time. Ariak agreed. Colette shouted that they would show this monster where the crayfish spend the winter. There was a big explosion near the heroes. Ariak said that they had to finish off the monster before the cave fell on their heads. Ariak uses his party-wide buff skill, lightning speed, sense enhancement, and multi-strike. Ariak shouted that they would finish Heinrich. He gathered all his strength, aiming a blow straight at the huge monster's eye. Colette hit the monster with all her might, so much so that holes appeared on the thick tentacles from the impact. Yuusha also used all her strength to strike the monster, cutting off its tentacles. The giant tentacle fell to the ground. Colette screamed that it had fallen off. Yuusha decided that the multi-hit was indeed overpowering his regeneration. Ariak Mihama was right. Ariak also took aim to hit the monster as hard as he could. He swung and aimed straight at its eye. Ariak said that the lightning speed makes them fast, and the enhanced senses allow them to dodge attacks. He called the monster a real damage sponge, and added that he would see how much it could take. Colette continued to strike the monster with all her might. Ariak and Yuusha surrounded it and struck each tentacle. There were blows all around. Ariak shouted that time was running out. Yuusha confidently corrected him, adding that it was Heinrich's time. Ariak struck the monster right in the eye. Pieces of tentacles flew around. Yuusha didn't understand what was happening. Ariak said that the monster couldn't hold its tentacles. Colette shouted that there was still a little bit left. The monster began to crumble from the blows and began to move away from the heroes. The girls shouted that the monster was leaving, but they almost finished him off. Yuusha said that she would cover the exit with a barrier, but Ariak countered, saying that they would pursue him. Yuusha, amazed, tried to stop Ariak. The monster flew out of the cave, trying to escape the fight, but fell, catching the remains of its tentacles on the pillars outside the cave. Almost nothing remained of it except for a huge eye. Ariak approached the lying monster. He chuckled at the fact that the monster wanted people at the entrance and to be healed. Alas, all the adventurers left. The hero stood looking at the prostrate monster. Ariake said that the monster should thank the beastmen it had oppressed. The monster flew up, holding onto the pillars. Alicia began to worry that the monster could now easily escape. Ariake told her not to worry. He wanted the monster to come out. The boy turned to Colette and asked if she was ready. She said that she was always ready. Finally, she could fight to the fullest. Ariake thrust his hand forward, shouting that this was the winning gambit. He told Colette to fry it all. A huge dragon appeared. The dragon rose above the heroes, straightening its neck. Alicia watched, mesmerized, admiring its beauty. The dragon, releasing tongues of flame from his mouth, said that he and his knight Ariak Mihama would give Henry and Minnick what they deserved. The dragon flew high into the air and released a huge stream of flame directly at the monster. The monster disappeared under such pressure. The beastmen began to disperse, seeing a large beam of fire in the sky far from them. Alicia closed her eyes from the fire. When everything died down, a huge funnel formed on the ground next to the cave. Ariake sighed. Colette immediately fell into his arms. She cried out happily, telling the hero that he knew how to exert himself as always. She added that it was very hot, but it felt so good. Alicia shouted that this was now Colette's true form. Colette told her that it was very cool. Alicia said it was amazing, looking at Colette in admiration. She was touched by how divine Colette was. Ariake grumbled that he would have to work hard to turn himself into something as beautiful and strong as Colette, asking Alicia what was causing her depression. The heroes stood in front of a huge funnel with smoke coming out of it. They had indeed defeated the hellish mimic, the three of them. Alicia fell to her knees. She said she felt tired from all the skills she had. Colette happily responded to the girl's words that they must have had such an amazing fight. Alicia agreed and said that it was all because of Ariake. Ariake replied that it couldn't be. He said that skills only work when there is someone to use them. They won this fight because Alicia and Colette were here. The girls looked at Ariake with gratitude and admiration. Colette laughed sheepishly at his words. Alicia said that the feud between the townspeople and the beastmen was still a problem, but for now, the adventurer killer was no longer a threat. Ariake says that the adventurer is a murderer. This magic sword is probably the source of all this, but he doesn't think that Heinrich prepared it himself. Most likely someone else had a hand in it. Alicia tells him that this would mean that there is an organizer behind all this. Colette happily says that they will talk about it later. She hurries and says that the case is closed. She points to the sky, smiles, and suggests that we rejoice now. Ariake looks at her in surprise. Her joy is immediately transmitted to Alicia, who smiles too. The beastmen go to hug Colette. Afterwards, when Ariake returned to Alden, the people of Alden greeted him with great hospitality as a hero who defeated Heinrich. He thanks them, but he just wants to live a quiet life. He had already decided that they would leave when they had the chance. Huey and Anna approach him and say that they came here to thank him for saving the beastmen. However, they see a picture of Ariake trying to climb over the wall. They call him, but he climbs diligently and says that he is not here. Ariake asks them if they can choose a time and place. He's kind of busy right now. Anna says with a smile that he's in the process of fleeing from the attacks of the hospitable townspeople. She asks if, after all these mythical battles, Ariake is going to sneak away. Ariake adjusts his cloak and asks if they could please speak less loudly. He says that the people of the city are amazing. Anna tells him that's how grateful they are to him. Ariake says that he didn't do it alone. Without their help, it wouldn't have happened. Huey says that it's a great honor for him to be useful. He turns to his little sister, who obeys and hands over a certain talisman to Ariake. She asks him to take what is called the Dawn Bell. She says that if Mr. Ariake needs help, let him use the spell. All the long-eared people in this city will do everything possible to get to their master. Ariake awkwardly asks why it is the owner. He replies that they, the long-eared ones, dedicate their lives to those they consider their owners. Anna smiles and asks him to accept this bell as his own limb. Huey says that this is the decision of the dog-ear tribe of this city. Ariake still wants to refuse, but they make eyes and ask him if he will accept their gratitude. Ariake says that fine, he will accept it, but he will not use it. They thank him, it suits them. Ariake strokes their heads and asks them to take care of themselves, and tears well up in their eyes. Evening comes. Alicia calls Ariake. She comes up out of breath, breathing heavily, and says that she finally found him. Ariake asks her where she was. Alicia says that they were leaving, but they got a call from the order. She says that she had to leave the group for a while because she was called to the order headquarters. Ariak Mihama sighs and says that it is hard. Alicia says that she will return very soon. She repeats this several times. She shouts that it is all Ariake's fault. She even received gratitude from the order. Not just from the city for defeating Heinrich and the Mimic. That's why she bothered to call him to report. She asks what she's going to do about it. Ariake asks if he's being praised or insulted in the end. Alicia says that she really appreciates what he did for Henry. The Archbishop even sent an official thank you to the hero Ariak Mihama. She says that if he had come to the order's headquarters, she could have expressed her gratitude to him in a different way. Ariake averts his gaze out of awkwardness. Alicia laughs, covering her mouth with her hand, and says that she knew he would say that. She has never been good at showing off. Ariake looks at her face and says he hasn't seen her like this in a long time. Alicia asks again if he really said something. She says she'll leave now. She already said hello to Colette. Ariake looks at her tenderly and tells Alicia to be careful, who immediately blushes and leaves in tears, thinking that she will come back as soon as possible, even if it is only for a second. Then some beastman comes to him and says that they have finally met, calling him his lord. She introduces herself as the Fenrir that Alicia pulled out of the dungeon and revived, giving her a human form. She tells him that she is Alicia's servant. She understands why Alicia did not allow her to see the Lord. She turns to him and says that he must be very careful about who is behind this incident. She tells him to be careful. Fenrir kisses him on the cheek and tells him that they will see each other again. Then she disappears among the petals. Ariake strokes his cheek and says that he never thought he would be so vulnerable. He still has a lot of growing to do. Later, Ariake and Colette are riding in a carriage. The girl says that it was more like leaving, running away from the city. Ariake says, displeased, that she hid well. She asks him where to go next, and he replies that they should go to the seaside town of Berta, because to get to Alti, they have to cross the ocean. Colette happily talks about the sea and that she is looking forward to it. At this time, Ariake remembers what Fenrir and the others said. He keeps thinking that there was definitely someone standing behind Heinrich, but he couldn't find any traces, a sense of presence, but an invisible feeling of nausea. He feels this discomfort not only this time. He lists all the events in his head. The withering of the elven forest, one incident in the city of healers and the devil's forest. The balance between the scale of the incident and the parties and reasons that caused it is not quite right. He says that more than that, what he felt when he saved Colette, he says out loud that it's disgusting. He understands that someone is trying to scatter the darkness. Having overthrown their overlord Henry in the city of Alden, Ariake and his friends continued on their way to the seaside city of Bertha to cross the sea. Colette turns to his master and asks if he has heard of the heroes. Ariake says that he did not think that they had confiscated the sacred sword. He says he was surprised when Alicia told him that. Colette says a hero without a sword is like a dish without meat. Ariake is outraged by what kind of analogy that is. He says that some unforeseen circumstances must have arisen, so he told them not to be careless in their preparations. He told her to be ready, so she must have had a stomachache or something. Colette says he's in his usual parenting mode. Colette sees something and tells the master that there is someone here. He asks if it is a royal guard. Someone in knight's costume says that they were expected. He must be the great sage Ariake. Another knight hands over a scroll and says that he has come to deliver an imperial decree from the king of Granheim. They are surprised by the imperial decree. The knight says that the great sage Ariak Mihama must have an imperial duel with the brave Bibia. He announces that the venue is the seaside town of Berta, and the time is exactly 1 month from now. Ariake listens calmly. Colette asks loudly if this is a preliminary match. Ariake says that, in short, they want them to fight in front of the royal family and the people. Colette asks why the master is called to such events. He answers that it is usually done to show the people the military power of the country. He thinks that everyone can guess why it happened. Colette says it doesn't matter to him, so he shouldn't pay attention. The knights awkwardly say they have no right to ignore the king's decree. Colette asks what power the king's command has over the people. He tells them to get out of the way, calling them the sons of men. Ariake says he would like to see how Bibia and the others have grown. Colette tells him he is a good man. Ariake is sure that they made many mistakes when they left the nest and went through life on their own, and he will teach them to fight. It is food for their growth and survival. That is what parental love is. Colette says that he is not a parent. Colette tells the knight that he is grateful for the extent of her master's capabilities. He awkwardly does not know what to answer. Ariaki tells him to tell the king that Ariaki has accepted their offer of a preliminary duel. At the Waldorf residence in the capital of the Kingdom of Granheim, Bibia raises a glass and expresses dissatisfaction with the preliminary duel. Waldorf sits across from him and asks if he would agree to this. Bibia laughs nervously, then tells him to think about what a difficult task they are about to impose on them, even with such hospitality. He says that this little fish isn't even worth fighting, of course he'll win. Delia is sitting on a chair in the background and says that she doesn't even have to worry about Bibia. Waldorf turns to her. She talks about her punch while the maids wash her feet. Elga says that Araki is too soft, he lacks muscles. Delia asks him to train his muscles elsewhere. Parara sits, eats, and says that she would like to beat him up again. They must show them who is the best. Lorelei and Bishuto sit to the side. She asks if they can really talk about this for so long. Everyone turns to her, displeased. She says that she heard that Ariaki organized a large group of adventurers in Medicine City and saved it from the monsters of the Demon Forest. If they are going to fight such a person, they should be more prepared. Bibia addresses her and says that she is a naive girl, that is why she was deceived by such rumors. They say that the city of Medzin is under the protection of the Knights of the Kingdom. Bibia turns to Vizier Voldark, who says that the royal order cannot afford to fail, so the knights supposedly destroyed the Demon Forest and saved the city. Bibia asks what he means by allegedly. He replies that he cannot say more because he is a man of his word. Purara says that it's stupid, he's a support specialist after all, it's only because the people around him were good, as if Ariaki took all the credit for it. Purara says that if they think for a second, they will realize that it is funny. Bibia supports and repeatedly says that she is right. Lorelei says that if the rumors are true, it's not just about support. Bibia tells her to shut up, don't contradict him, he thinks she's just exaggerating the rumors. There is an awkward silence. Lorelei finally says that she still wants to leave the group. Bashuto immediately supports her and says that he will go with her too. Delia tells them that it is useless. They have received many complaints and claims for damages for destroying Laxmi's hunting grounds. She says that they are somehow protected by the government because they are a group of heroes. If they lose this title, they will be in huge debt, they will be on the margins, their life will end. Lorelei says tearfully how they could let this happen. Delia screams that they are on the same side, they can't afford to lose it all now. Bashuto looks on and says it's a nightmare. Parara laughs out loud until she cries and says that it is funny, people's misfortunes amuse her so much. Bibia tells Parara that she is still a woman of bad character. The vizier says seriously that, so to speak, this is preliminary preparation. He says that they are the appointed heroes of the kingdom, and it is about improving their reputation. Unfortunately, their current reputation is somewhat inconsistent with being called heroes. He says that, on the contrary, some call Ariake, who left the group of heroes, the true hero. He asks if they can allow this. He asks if this is not an opportunity. Who is the real hero? He thinks it is a good opportunity to show the public what they are capable of. Delia asks if he means they can redeem themselves. Urga asks if there will be no more stoning or other actions. The vizier says that of course the incident with Laxmi was a mistake. If they mean that he was too strong, then people's perception will change too. Bibia breaks the glass of drink in anger and says that he is against someone like Ariake. He is not interested in a game with an obvious outcome. He says he is a hero, and as a hero he must always do justice. Is Ariake a hero a lie he told himself? He will try to stop him from being a hero because he is angry that he was exiled. He says these are battles for justice. He will hold Ariake accountable for deceiving him and ruining his reputation. He turns to the vizier and says that he is ready for this duel and that he agrees to these conditions. Bibia adds that the result is obvious. The vizier stands up and wishes them well. He stops abruptly and says that there is one more thing. Bibia asks what else. The vizier tells someone to come to them. The door opens, a nice girl with a sword comes in, greets them, says she is pleased to meet you, her name is Lakurai. It turns out to be a boy. She bows sharply to Bibia and again says it is a pleasure to meet him. Bibia asks who it is. The vizier says he wants them to take care of him for a while. He says he wants Bibia to take him into his band of heroes and train him as an apprentice. Bibia shouts in rage. Does the old man really want him as his apprentice? He is called Lakaraya a little brat. The boy stands guiltily aside. Bibia says with displeasure that if it were a girl, he would be with her, but with him, Lakarai lowers his eyes. Bibia shouts that he is a hero, a man, he cannot be a nanny, let someone else do it. The vizier says that this will not do, it is too much to demand from someone else. The vizier introduces Bibia to the boy, calling him a hero, the owner of the sacred spear of Brunok. He also adds that he is the owner of the holy sword. Bibia is the one this vizier trusts.